It is Callaway.
Hello, Christina. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Brent. I don't see Brent.
He's hiding.
Welcome, Rob.
What have I got to do to have you see me? You don't want to see me anyway. I look like Ryan, only with a gray beard.
If you go down to the bottom left, it says start video or stop video. That's where you can make yourself seen.
Bottom
We'll
left.
go to, if you'll try to pull it up on yours, it should be live on YouTube.
Okay, I will.
Okay, bottom left. I don't see anything on bottom left.
Are you moving your mouse around, Brent?
Am I moving my mouth? No.
Mouse.
Oh, it's awesome.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
You're on.
So Ryan, can you hear me?
Oh,
I
there
can
you go,
hear
Brent.
He did it.
Yep. I'll just turn it off though until I need to speak.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, once we get the mayor on, I'm going to mute mine. He's here in my office with me, and so we're going to tag team this. So you'll be able to see me and hear me through his. So who else are we waiting for?
Josh.
Josh, yep. Haven't seen Josh yet.
Okay, there's Christina.
Okay.
Oh, he just texted that he's having trouble.
Very
So he's restarting his computer, I'm assuming.
Should have brought my other computer, which I have downstairs.
Mayor, we're getting audio feedback. Is Ryan's muted yet?
I've got mine muted. Could you hear me now?
Yeah, when the mayor spoke, I heard echoing.
Okay. Yeah, I think mine is now muted. But my speaker.
Can you hear me?
They were hearing it.
Yep, we can hear you, Janelle.
So how do we? Where are my? Here we go. Oh, cool. So everybody's microphone is on except Ryan's. Janelle, you have your phone on also,
Yeah.
along with video? Because it shows a phone
Yeah.
symbol rather than a microphone.
The audio's on my phone.
Okay.
But maybe I should try and do it on my computer.
You know what I forgot is this thing. There we go. That's better.
There you go.
Is Chad going to join us tonight?
He was invited.
We go ahead and get started. We are 6:04. There's Rob. Well, you can do a green screen. Cool. All right, we ready? All right, let's call the council meeting of Wednesday, April 15th to order. My name is John Drew. I am Providence City Mayor. We have present on video. We have Brent Speth, Councilmember Brent Speth, Janelle Seeley, Christina Eck, Carrie Kirk. I don't have the Hollywood Squares things. I can't see everybody that's here. Rob Stapley is here. He's our Public Works Director. I think Scarlett's on. I don't see all the participants here, and I don't know why.
Josh is on. Thank you, Josh, for joining. Hopefully you can hear us.
Well, why I don't see everybody, I don't know. Okay, all right, let's just go ahead and move on. So we have all of our council members present. Josh, are you here?
Yeah, just by the skin of my teeth, it looks like.
Well, we waited for you, so we're ready to go. So all the council members are here. We have a quorum. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag in here?
I don't have a flag in my office.
I can pull one up on my screen.
Can you?
I could
Hey,
Google it.
Josh.
Google. Well, you want me to share my screen? I can do that.
Sure. For it.
All right. I think we've got a flag now.
Got to spell it right first.
That's me.
Oh, you've got one there too. Good.
All right,
All right.
stand for that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with justice.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. That's different. We'll be better prepared next time. We'll just have a flag in the background. Anyone like to offer a thought for this evening or prayer?
I'll take a turn at the prayer.
Go ahead, Josh.
Thank you. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful that we could gather this evening as a city council, as a representative government in this great city and in this good country in which we find ourselves so fortunate to be. We are grateful for these technological means which have allowed us to connect today, to carry about important city business. And we pray that they might function well this evening and help meet the needs of this quorum that we have. We're grateful for our city staff for their work and effort that they put into our city, and pray for their continued health and safety during this time. We pray for the residents of this city that would watch over them, particularly during this pandemic, that we might listen to good, wise counsel and implement those things to be safe and healthy. We pray that we might be resilient and work diligently to restore our economy and other things that have so deeply affected our lives. We pray for the healthcare workers and those that serve on our behalf and make decisions for this state and for this country, that they might exercise wisdom and judgment. And we pray for that same wisdom and judgment to carry over this evening as we discuss, at times deliberate, and ultimately make decisions that they will be in the best interest of those involved, that we might have a good discussion and a harmonious path to move forward as a city and better this land in which we live. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I think we should record that, Josh.
I think it is recorded.
With such a
Keep it out of the minutes.
yeah. So, all righty. Staff reports. We'll go on to the staff reports first. And I know we have Chad on board. Our city engineer is not with us.
Chad is here.
What?
Chad's here.
Max.
Oh, Max is not, our engineer is not.
City engineer is not here. Rob is here. Chad, our city attorney, is here. Ryan's here. Scarlett is here. So Rob, why don't you go ahead and get started? Give us a report.
Okay, everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, hello, City Council. I hope you're all doing well. All the departments are definitely busy. Spring is definitely sprung. So there's lots of to-dos going on right now. Social distancing definitely poses its challenges in public works. But we're taking measures to try to help minimize those risks. Luckily, we work primarily outdoors. So we have a lot of solo missions or missions with very small teams. So that definitely helps. Development and construction still seem to be cruising right along despite this current pandemic. So we are as well. We've had a few pre-construction meetings lately, and so progress is still heading our way. If I can answer any public works related questions, I'd be happy to try to field those.
Rob, I have one.
Shoot.
This is Brent. The question that I have is I saw that the green waste containers were going to only be there through May 1st and then be brought back later in the fall. Are we not going to have green waste containers this summer?
That is correct. That's a county-wide situation going on that Logan City is responsible for. Unfortunately, I think costs have driven their decision to do that. It's very unfortunate. I'm glad that they're going to do it for the 2 months that they are for spring and fall cleanup purposes. But there's talk that they might eliminate that altogether next year. So I hope that's not true and that's just rumor. But they have minimized. They've got a lot of different excuses that I've heard as to why they've implemented the 2 months only situation that we're in, but it's the way they're going, and we don't have much to say about that unless we want to spend a good chunk of money and be one of the few cities that do pay for that service fee to have that year round.
Oh, that was my question. Do we not pay for those 2 months from Logan City?
No, the service of the green waste facility has been a free service up until now. If we want to have it continue, we've got to pay for it.
Do we have an idea of how much it would be to pay for it?
I could send out an email to everybody, that kind of shows that cost breakdown. I don't have it memorized. I did read something somewhere. It's been quite a while though.
Okay.
My curiosity is, and I don't have a problem with hauling stuff over. It was just quite handy, but where the only problem with paying is we get a lot of the businesses then that mow grass and stuff that would use the containers, and we would have to pay for that. That was an issue early on, but where it was free, didn't make much difference. But if we go to pay, then it will be something we'll have to be concerned with.
Yeah, abuse at that location has been one of the main reasons I think that Logan City's pulled the service, is because there's a lot of abuse related to the contractor world, the landscaper world, kind of abusing the service, and it's something that would probably be worse if we were one of the only communities that did provide it besides Logan City. So we'd have to think about that as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Rob,
Yes.
pre-construction meeting on which project?
We just had one on the Danny McFarland's 4-lot subdivision called the Jensen Farm. So
Okay.
those 4 lots on 2nd West and 100 North. That should start probably this week, I believe. We'll start seeing some road closures probably. That's a county road that they'll be going down to our utilities in. So they'll have to get some traffic plans submitted to the county for their road closures to cut across 2nd West and 1st North.
Okay.
And we've also got the Spring Creek pre-construction meeting out of the way for the charter school crossing.
What's the start date on that?
We're still waiting on the spring flows to subside based on that stream alteration permit. So we're optimistic that we'll start first week roughly the first part of July.
Okay. And we're still waiting on the east crossing over the creek.
I talked to Visionary today, actually, and they are looking very optimistic that they'll start that crossing pretty soon, that they've got the FEMA and the Army Corps stuff about tidied up finally. So I think we're going to deliver all the box culvert pieces this week for that project.
Good, nice. Connections. Okay. Any more questions for Rob? Nope. Thank you, Rob.
Yep, thank you.
Scarlett?
Okay, from the administrative side of things, we're doing some of the remote working from home. I split my time between home and the office. Diane Campbell's doing the same thing, as well as Rob. We're getting the hang of it. Quite a few people are utilizing my cell phone now. I'm getting about as many or more phone calls when I'm working remotely from home as I get here in the office. So people are staying connected with us. We're continuing to try and look at software opportunities to improve our agenda management and our budget management and those types of things. I think Ryan has found some good solutions to those things that we're working on. We've put signs in our parks to encourage people to social distance. We've taped the playgrounds. We did, at one of our parks, we did find out that we had a young resident that was trying to help to keep the parks open, and they unknowingly were taking our caution tape down. They actually thought they were helping us because they couldn't see anything wrong with the playground equipment, and so they were taking those things down and taking our signs down. We have that remedied now, so I think we've got our playgrounds all marked and everything. So that's kind of it on the administration side. I noticed Jesse's doing a good job of making sure he's doing the Clorox wipes after people come and go from our building. It seems to be working pretty good with people calling in advance for appointments or calling when they get here to come in and drop things off. We've also beefed up our online capabilities for people to submit applications online. They can do their utility agreement online, their business license, dog license, residential zoning. They can also do most of their land use. Most of the developers, though, are just really used to sending us an email with all of the electronics and documents attached. So we haven't got a lot of activity on our land use option, but our dog licensing and our utilities, Tara's getting quite a bit of activity, people filling out the online utility agreements. We worked with iWorks on that, and that was, we had more documents than what they're used to have online, excuse me, applications. So it's been a learning curve for both of us, but I think we're at a point that we're moving along pretty good with that as well. So I think COVID ID, while it's brought a lot of really scary, bad things, it's also caused us to go outside our comfort zone and learn some things and do some things that I think in the long run actually are going to end up being good for us. So that's pretty much my report. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Any questions of Scarlett?
No, good job getting all that stuff online. I think that will serve the city for many years to come. I think it's very progressive and good.
Thank you.
It's one of the items we had started working on before this came, but it definitely accelerated our interest there. So
nothing like an immediate need.
Move us along. It's true.
We've made a lot of progress in a short time, and I think the current economic situation has forced some of the issues. I saw a quote today that I thought I'd share, and if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Remember who Lenin was? formed the Soviet Union, the revolution in Russia, he said there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. So we've had weeks when a decade worth of changes we've seen happen. It's like every day something about how our daily lives operate change.
One thing I might
You're-
add, Mayor,
Uh,
we did put on our agenda that people could email comments in, and I've been monitoring that email. We've
Okay.
yet to receive any comments mailed in for tonight's meeting. One of the things that people can also do is text our regular city phone number, 435-752-9441. You can send a text to that number and it will come through as an email and notify us as well. And I do have that on in case somebody that's listening out there, in case they want to email to Providence City, Utah @gmail.com, or they can text 435-752-9441, and I will pop in and let you know if we receive comments.
all right.
And we are being live streamed on YouTube. So anyway, we have that as well with this one. So
And I do know one couple that came in this afternoon, said they were gonna watch the council meeting on YouTube, so we know we have an audience out there. Brian,
okay,
give us your report.
yeah. So a few things I have sent out to the group, the Zions Bank feasibility. They've quoted 5,000 to proceed with that. So if the council is interested, we'd be able to proceed with that one. Is there concern at the 5,000 mark if we proceed? That's something we'd be interested in moving forward with. Kind of asking there. Okay, let me know if you have any concern there. We've done a lot of what we've been meeting with. We've had a lot of training calls with this COVID training and learning and coordinating. The Lieutenant Governor has a call every week that I'm on, and so does the League of City and Town, being able to coordinate those. So I think we're in the right spot. We're doing well in our coordination. One item, just to kind of follow up from last council, purchase of property. I did contact one of those options, and they did say that they don't want to consider an offer until we have an appraisal, and we have received that appraisal, that property back. So I'll be in contact with them. So if you want to know any details, it's more closed session if we want to go into the negotiations of it. But just as a report, I have made that contact, and I have at least working on that, just so that you are all aware that we're working towards that. Another item that we're working on is a deep dive with the job description and wage analysis. We have a consultant that we're working with, and that's making progress. We're also working on agreements and discussions with those on 300 South, the sewer line expansion there. We'll go from Zions Bank to the west. So anyway, and we're working on budgets. So I've met with each of the different departments and supervisors and working through budgets. So, and then I think, yep, I have 100 South. I'll talk about that in a minute. A couple of things. We have our tank project, 1.5 million gallon tank project that is about 90% designed at this point. And the next step is to look to either go out for funding or for potentially funding it, out of our reserves. There is a few funding options that I'm looking to consider, and that would be one, to the CIB, we could get 2.5% or less in interest rate, or we could go out to the open bond market. And I visited with the bank, and they're about 3 to 3.5%. So there is that option. I was hoping to see if interest rates were lower And with this COVID, if interest rates drop, and that's something we think that we could magnify on, I'm watching that. So just keeping that in mind. Anyway, we're looking for other things. Rob and Scarlett have covered some of the other things pretty well. So we're keeping busy and keeping things running as smoothly as possible here at the office, even with it being by appointment. So, but if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer any of those.
Ryan, I have one.
Okay.
If we're talking about using reserves for the tank versus going out and bonding at, would you say 3%, somewhere around that?
Yeah, let's say 3%. It could be as low as 2.5, or as high as 3.5. So but those are possible options.
Are we gaining any interest on our reserves?
Yeah, so that interest rate has varied. The current interest rate, probably 6 months ago was at 2.5 to 3%. But right now it's probably in the 2% range. So if we could borrow at 2, and over the length of our loan, it could go up at 2.5 to 3%, and we could see that, then we could gain an arbitrage. But if we think interest rates will never go up, then I understand you don't borrow if you think interest rates will go down. But if we can find a spot that interest rates are really low, it might be worth at least taking a look at that.
Yeah, if we could borrow at an interest rate lower than what we're gaining on ours, then you probably got a good deal.
Right. Over a long term, obviously, in the short term, our interest rate will be low. Right, low interest rate earnings will be low right now because of this COVID thing.
Right.
But interest rates have dropped, and we think, hey, over time they'll go up, which I think they will. It might be of interest that over a 20-year period of time, we may gain the arbitrage.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Any more questions?
I've just got one for Ryan. Ryan, thanks for the update on the reservoir, the tank up there. There were a few of us council members who spoke after the council meeting about that just individually. And I think there's some interest in that we're missing an opportunity. Well, just picking a name for that. I think I like to propose, and I know Christina feels the same way, maybe kicking that over the Historical Society to recommend a name or two of something that might be a little more significant to the city and honor some of the city's heritage as we build these large capital infrastructure projects. So I want to provide that with feedback. If the other council members agree, maybe we could ask the Historical Society to do that and then decide on that in an upcoming council meeting.
Yeah, I think we've got time. What does the other council think?
Yeah, I didn't have any ideas for a name, but I love the idea of having the Historical Society generate some ideas.
Okay.
I'm fine with
I
that.
agree. I think that's a good idea.
I think that they'll come up with some very creative ideas and suggestions.
I like it.
Yeah.
So I have something that I've been thinking about too. I've had some conversations with Ryan about the water company and the negotiations with them. And he ran through some numbers with me that they had presented, and I received the email from Brent with their side of the story. And I feel like I think it would be a good idea to have a subcommittee work on that water company negotiations, consisting of Ryan, and the way he explained it to me just seemed so clear and so emotional. And obviously, Brent would have to be on the committee because of his representation of the water company, but he would also be representing Providence. And then I had a conversation with Janelle, and she's been doing a lot of homework and is very neutral. So I think she could present a neutral stance. If we had a subcommittee that could maybe, working without the attorneys, make some headway with the water company.
I feel the same way regarding that. I think there's a path to some dialogue there, and I think my interest in that is maybe as Carrie's is I think we want to be set a precedent as a city of collaboration and cooperation, and at least in speaking with Brent privately about this, I think Brent would be open. Both, I don't know. I don't know how to distinguish your two hats sometimes. This one, Brent, it's hard for me to do. But I think if you were wearing your city council hat, you'd be open to it. And I also think if you're wearing the water company hat, you'd be open to it.
You're absolutely right, Josh. It's always been, and I know that it's been misinterpreted, but it's always been our want as an irrigation company to, without jeopardizing the other shareholders, to allow the city to use as much water as possible. And we are citizens. We want the citizens to use the water. And we think it's important to give as much of that pristine water to the city as we can. And there'd be times when I think this year the water could be used throughout the summer. But again, when we're sometimes confronted with about the process, then it gets very difficult. But I would be happy to sit down and have face-to-face. Maybe you could invite another member of the board, maybe Ralph Daniels too, just in case, since I wear two hats, but he wears a different hat. And I think we could sit down and negotiate some things out. I really do.
I think you can too. And the way Ryan presented it to me as a neutral person, I thought this can be worked out with feelings set aside. And so I just thought if Ryan could do that with you and whoever else you want from the water company, and then Janelle was just who I thought had the enough background but no sides. And she's a number person, and I think this boils down to numbers. She's an engineer, and so I just thought that would be a great little team to see if you can make some headway without proceeding with court hearings.
I'd really be open to that.
So is it your call, Mayor, whether they can do that?
Well, first of all, the council can create a subcommittee or commission. Councils do that all the time. I don't have a problem with that, but as our city attorney will tell you, and we're still on council, we're still on staff reports, is ultimately the full council makes a final decision on anything. I would suggest Rob be in the meeting, because Rob Stapley, our public works director, because he knows our system and he knows the canyon. He knows what our system is capable of as far as taking water in, and some of the issues. Janelle sent me a note yesterday, which I replied to, and in replying, I consulted a bit with Rob about my reply to Janelle. So Rob's got a lot of insights that I think would be very valuable to be in on that discussion.
Great. So what do we need to do to create a subcommittee? Does it have to be voted on, or do we just say yes, do it?
In my opinion, I don't think we need to vote on it. Chad, can you unmute and comment there for a second?
Sorry, you'd think I'd never used technology before. I don't think you need to vote on it. I think if the council is kind of all in favor of doing something like that, I think I'm just from my perspective as the attorney for the city, I have no problem with an attempt to come together outside of litigation. So far it hasn't been fruitful, but maybe I think Ryan has a pretty good head on his shoulders, You know, I think Ryan and Janelle, I think that's what you said, Carrie. Was Ryan?
Yeah, that was just as I thought, who would have the temperament to be the most successful? That was my thought.
And I like the mayor's idea of having Rob involved in that conversation too, assuming that, you know, I mean, again, I don't see any problem with trying to get to some negotiation. As I see it, there are not very many major points that we don't agree on. There's just some quibbling going on somewhere that we haven't been able to reach. So I personally think it's a good idea.
I'm fine.
I like
All right.
that.
Chad,
I'll reach out to Janelle and Brent, and we'll get the resources we need to get a meeting together. And I'll always work with the staff, so work with Rob. And so, but yeah, if that's all right, then I'll reach out and start working on a time that we can all get together that way.
So we have had a subcommittee the previous council did. I just want to mention that you might want to consider reaching out to some of those people from the previous council for some insights. The other thing is there's probably some information that Rob would need to gather. I mean, the committee would request. We've got copies of documents that have been scanned that we've got stored here that the committee is going to probably want access to as well. So you're going to need the staff as a resource, myself, Scarlett, Ryan, of course, as well. So who would be on the committee? I heard Janelle and Carrie. And who else?
I don't think we can have Carrie on the committee because then that's a quorum. We have Brent.
Yeah.
We can't.
So we have who representing the company and who representing the city.
I suggested
Brian, go ahead,
I
Brent.
suggested that Ralph also be from the company. And,
So we have two people from the company then.
and myself, yes. I do wear two hats, and I'm sorry about that. If you would like another one from the company so that you have two opinions without mine, Rod Qualis would be
We
very
only
good.
have Janelle and Rob.
Pardon me?
Sounds like we only have Janelle and Rob on the city side
And Ryan.
and Ryan.
Ryan, Janelle, and Rob. And then Josh, you said there again, that would be three.
We have a quorum then.
Yeah, we can't have more from the council, only two.
All right, Janelle, myself, Ralph, and Rod Qualis, and Ryan.
I feel like the more people you involve, the more muddled it will become. So I would just caution against involving too many people, just keeping
Right.
it small.
Yeah, you know
The only
what,
one- Sorry.
Josh has got a grin on his face. You know what committees?
Well, when you work in higher education a long time or in government, yeah, you get used to really difficult to manage committees. So
Exactly.
I agree with Carrie. I think something smaller, but I guess the counsel I would have to Brent would be, if there are significant stakeholders that if we work something out and those stakeholders are brought in later and they're not okay with this, I feel like, if there's one or two of those people, I feel like we need to get their buy-in from the beginning. I'd hate to go to the effort and then have that unravel after the fact if we were able to come up with something that works well for both sides.
Well, what I'm thinking of is we had a group that just got done working on the general plan. We had a committee that worked on the methodology on the recreation fees, and a smaller group seemed to be effective, efficient, and got the job done in quick order.
Mayor, do you remember who was on a subcommittee with the old council? I just can't remember and I'm curious.
Dennis and Kirk Allen.
Brent, I'm just going to throw this out here, and I'm not sure you'll entertain it, but it might be worthwhile. Maybe if there are a couple people representing the company and you're not one of those, and a couple of the council members, I don't know if you'd feel comfortable with that, but if you had a vice chair or something like that, you felt can enter those negotiations and represented your views, I think it would be nice to have a couple council members involved in the discussions.
Okay, so you're saying you'd rather me not be there and maybe
I'm throwing it out there.
I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Because I do wear two hats. And so if we wanted to have Janelle and another council member, and then a couple of the board of directors come, rather than myself, that's fine. We pretty much are all in agreement.
With that is I believe that it was going to require Brent's signature, so he has to be really on board.
What's that?
Brent, I don't know. You and I have spoken about this. Do you think you can make that work if we got together? Do you think you could counsel those board members enough that if we came to something, you'd have a reasonable expectation that we'd arrive at a good agreement?
My council member or my board members are pretty much in agreement. They're understanding it quite well. I would. Wes is the vice president or vice chair, but I think we would have more luck with Ralph Daniels and Rod Koalas in this matter. Jake is good, but he doesn't have the time. So I'd say Rod Koalas and Ralph Daniels. And I would be happy to just be in the background with those guys.
So we're off agenda, guys. You realize that?
Yeah, we are.
Josh always keeps us in line every council meeting.
I didn't want to step on someone's toes, but we are. Yeah.
You haven't spoken up, but I'm in favor of smaller is better and come to the larger group with some ideas. I think you get more done and get more done sooner. Just my 2 cents.
I feel like this is great. I feel like Brent is right in the middle. He's like the hub of this. I understand there's conflict and question, but I feel like he would need to be on the committee.
I do too.
Otherwise,
I also.
he understands it. He gets what we're talking about. Hopefully, I don't know. I think it'd be helpful. Might be helpful to have Scarlett on the committee. He knows the history.
But
Who on the city side knows the history?
I think at this point, we have a few different things. We probably need to move on, but I would say that we have myself and Carrie and Janelle, so that there's that 3, and then with Brent, they select from their board 2 of their members, and when we meet as a negotiating group, we'll keep it small that way so that it's a smaller group. But then when we come back as that smaller group and we negotiate, we'll bring in Scarlett and Rob, and we can bring the mayor in when it's the council side subcommittee. We don't want to have a majority, but we can pull that in. We'll find out our research and then go back. But at that point, I think we can work out if we have the subcommittee from the council. I would say two councilmen and myself. And if Brent stays on the committee, then we have just Janelle and Brent, and that's fine. So I think as we move forward, maybe that's something that Brent can take back to his board and see if he has a committee they can form, and we can work from there. But I say at that point, it's tossed up as an idea, and we move to the next agenda, and we circle this back at some point.
Great.
I do have one question of Chad really quick, sorry. Litigation has been filed, and it has been there is going forward now a publication of the change application with the state water engineer. Is that going to be stayed, or is that going to move forward?
Shouldn't this be executive session stuff?
Yes.
So as of right now, that's not stayed in my mind from my what I've been doing.
I guess I'd agree with Christina that I think, yeah, now we've already been kind of wading in waist deep water. Now we're getting into chest deep, and I don't want to
Yep.
get above my head. So
Good. Yeah, we need to move on. Chad, can you give us your staff report? You've got anything you want to cover?
You know, I really don't. The one thing that I just want to say is that if any of the council members have any questions at all, I'm glad to meet with you. I've met with several of you at different times and so forth. So please reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you have any questions now, I'd be glad to take any, but I don't have anything that I need to talk about right now.
Okay, thanks, Chad. Let's move on. Need to go to approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th. I have a motion from the council,
I move that we approve the minutes for March 18th.
motion from,
I'll second.
okay. Discussion. I've got a couple of things here. Any of the council have anything on the minutes they'd like to bring up? Corrections, changes, grammar, something else? All right, I do. We have, in here, we had, on the agenda, we had a public hearing. We didn't have the public hearing. The minutes need to reflect that the public hearing was not held. There's also one of the agenda items. It was item number 1, legislative item. We did not vote. We did not consider that. So the minutes need to reflect that. Other than that, I didn't find anything else in the minutes.
I had one thing. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I didn't speak up quickly enough. Minor thing for Jesse, page 4 of 9, last bullet between the dialogue between myself and Lieutenant Barchi. I believe I made a comment, something to the effect of, and I'd like included, that we are essentially getting unofficial 24/7 service for animal control. That was kind of my returning comment there.
What line?
That'd be line, it would be inserted line 177.
177, and you want me to say that?
Hey, Jay Paulson commented that we are essentially receiving 24/7 animal control service at without paying for it, or something to that effect.
Okay.
I think I may have, let's see. Oh, it can come up later, actually. A couple comments I'd made. So, but I think they'll come up on the agenda today.
Okay. Jesse, you got that?
I got it.
Okay. Any other council comments? Did I hear somebody? All right, hearing no further comments, all in favor of approving the minutes of March 18th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Unanimous. Thank you. Public comments. I don't know how we do this. Citizens may appear before the city council to express their views on issues within the city's jurisdiction. Comments will be addressed to the council. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. The total time allotted to public comment is 15 minutes. City council may act on an item if it arose subsequent to the posting of this agenda and the city council determines that an emergency exists. Ryan, how do we get to do this?
At that point, let's turn the time to Scarlett. If she's received it, she's the avenue which is monitoring both the email and the text. So if she's received something, let's turn it to her.
So I've kept watching and I don't have any public comments. If something does pop in during the meeting that pertains to the agenda tonight, I'll be happy to let you know. But right now, checking both my phone and the email, we do not have any outside comments coming in.
Maybe give the number one more time for people who may not have been listening at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, so the text would be 435-752-0959. 9441. I know that sounds like a landline number because it is, but the way we have it set up, it receives text. 435-752-9441. The email is Providence City, Utah, all one word, and Utah spelled out UTAH. So Providence City, Utah @gmail.com.
And are these just to verify, these are general public comments for things not on the agenda or anything on the agenda, Mayor? How you want to take these today? Because sometimes they've been done with the agenda items. I just
I think we shifted gears starting this year. We took public comments, whether it was an agenda item or not an agenda item starting this year.
I only bring that up because I know I got some comments from Pam. Pam, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name because I can see you're watching on YouTube, Fulgar, and I know you had some comments you had emailed me, and I can see that you're watching on YouTube right now. So I guess if you're interested, Scarlett gave instructions on how best to do that. So.
Scarlett, do we have any comments that?
I don't have any that have shown up.
Okay.
To this
All right.
point.
We need to move forward. All right. Public comment portion is concluded with no comments having been received by our city recorder. We'll go on to administrative business. Item number 1 is a report on the city celebration, results of the city celebration survey. Who's got a report on that? Ryan has that.
So I did get a comment. I will only share my screen as it comes up. I did share the agenda as you saw, but I will just share my screen here so you can see the results, and I'll walk through the questions. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So at that point, we asked what the sense of community in Providence was. It's at 3.4. That ranged as the survey went along. It started a little higher. Well, it started about 3, dropped down. That just varies as it comes, and as we got various responses, that's where it came down to about 3.4. It has a bell curve, which says that at that point, the most people were in the middle, and it kind of goes out from there. What we'd like to see eventually is kind of a linear curve, so that we see more in the 4s and 5s and less in the 1s and 2s. And at this point, it's a bell curve. The other one that we had, what month would you prefer the celebration in? Clearly 30% were in September, 18 and 16 respectively were in August and October. We did have a blip in June, but by and large, most are right in that September timeframe. Nobody really wants it in the winter, which we expected. So
got at least one.
Yeah, we had one in January, nobody in December or February or March. So, and then when was the last time it came to the celebration? A third of the respondents came in the last year or two. Just good. A third of your respondents, which is good that you're getting a response from your other residents, but a third have never come. And then there is some that it's been a while. So you have a fairly good split. Obviously, you have the potential of gaining a lot of people to come, depending on whether you're willing to listen to their comments and get them involved. Part of Oktoberkraut celebration that you're most interested in, children activities by far. Food booths was a interest, and then the car show was an 18%. Some of the rest, just were less of an interest. So I wouldn't get too involved in those, but I would make sure you have your top 3. Additional activities, summer concerts in the park is a popular one. I know that you've done some of the concerts in the park and the movie in the park, but by and large, people are saying that they really like that. Whether they'd actually come or not, I don't know what their turnout would be, but that is it's a fairly significant amount And then you have a 5K and a service project. But I'd focus on your top 3 to 4 as you form a celebration. I'd look at those. Interesting ones. How many are interested in a parade? 62% of your respondents. And I should have said there are 250 that responded to the survey, which is pretty good response. So 62%
I wonder
said
how
yeah.
many of them know we have a parade.
Well, they like the parade or they want to keep a parade. There is 38% that don't want one. Overall, between the 11 and 12 o'clock range is when they'd like to have the parade. At a cost to the city with fireworks, 70% would like to have fireworks with their celebration. So anyway, that's.
Who doesn't like fireworks?
There are some veterans and the dog owners that fear that would scare their dog. They do have some of those and valid concern, but 70% would like to have fireworks. Keep in mind, you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000 for fireworks if you have a good show. So recreational activities and the facilities that they says, what Providence City recreation facility programs or services do you currently use? Baseball is pretty high. Once we sent it out and got from Facebook and got the email distribution to our sports site and the newsletter, baseball is a fairly popular thing in your community, in our community. Softball 27, pickleball 25. Again, activities that they want with city celebration, movies in the park and carnival games, a baseball game maybe. So fun run. So those are things to consider as you look at it. Parks that you utilize, Zollinger Park is number 1. Alma Landhart is number 2, and followed close by Von Bear Park. And then you can see where the other parks utilization is at. And then, I can send this out, but the individual responses, we had 155 individuals that wrote an individual response of what they thought could increase the sense of community. Overall, I think our community is engaged or wants to be engaged. They want to have a good place to live and a good sense of community, and they're willing to give you feedback if you ask. So at that point, I think that in some, given a lot of feedback, and I'll send that out. But overall, that is kind of the response. I mean, 250 is a fairly well engaged group. It doesn't necessarily sound like it, but 250 is a good response out of a community. So, and then I think I sent Christina a list. I think there were 38 people on the list that signed up for wanting to be able to be a volunteer to serve on a committee. So I think that's a pretty good list to pick from and choose from, and there's a lot of good interest. So I think that was positive. Overall, I thought the survey went very well. I think that your public likes to have them. So, any questions on it?
Thank you, Ryan. That is so awesome to see, and not just perceive or think we know, to see what people really think.
Who knew people wanted that parade, right?
There you go.
I'm pretty sure I'm one of the ones that said not to pay for fireworks. That's so much money.
There's going to be a big price tag. It's not like you go down to the Macy's and the local vendor and buy some fireworks. It's a pretty big production.
But if people want it, then we should consider it.
I think what I'd like to see this year is let's do what we can to show that we're here. We, as council, we can show up and get the community involved, and then build on it every year. And maybe building on it would mean fireworks in the future.
I agree.
I have a suggestion. I was wondering if the council on the day of our celebration ought to cook breakfast and serve it to people
On when?
on our celebration, on the morning of our celebration, or
Like a
before a
pancake
parade or
breakfast.
something like that. The
Pancake
council
breakfast.
members.
There is some of those suggestions. A pancake breakfast after the 5K run.
Love it. So fun.
On there. That's not mine. It came from the survey. I think you'd find that there's lots of good ideas as well. So I think
in my hometown where I grew up, they had a breakfast and a 5K, but the money above and beyond the operating costs paid for the fireworks.
If we get
That's an idea.
enough participants, then we can pay for the fireworks.
Yeah, good idea.
So
the city I came from, they had people that helped sponsor. We did fireworks twice a year. So we were at $25,000 to $30,000 worth of fireworks because we did it twice a year, 2 different celebrations. Okay, that is my report on the city celebration. If there's any other questions, let me know.
if you had 100 participants in a 5K run, they'd need to pay $100 a piece to raise $10,000 for the fireworks.
Yeah, but maybe only one runs and they bring a family to breakfast.
Maybe we get somebody to donate the pancake mix and all that.
There you go.
Or they just subsidize it. They don't pay for the whole show.
Okay, any more questions of Ryan on the celebration survey? Any other suggestions? All right, hearing none, let's move on. Item number 2, resolution 0112020, recreation philosophy and cost recovery methodology. Providence City Council will consider approval of the recreation philosophy and cost recovery methodology. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we can approve resolution 011-2020 recreation philosophy and cost recovery methodology.
Motion from Councilwoman Eck. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, there we go. Second from Councilwoman Seelig. Who's going to take the lead on this? Ryan?
I can take the lead, sure. Those that were on the committee can obviously pipe in. But at this point, we met as a subcommittee, reduced out and added a level. The level being ones that we wanted to make a profit at between 10 and 25%, and reduced it down and boiled it down to one page, took out some of the calculations, simplified the approach, and really left it being just the recreation. Some of the specifics, instead of listing them out, were put in as examples. But at that point, it was kind of simplified and added and adjusted. So anyway, any comments from the other subcommittee members that have things they'd like to comment on this one?
I have some, but I'll defer to Janelle first.
Well, I had one typo on there. Well, on the end of level 6, I think maybe negotiated should be 2 words.
Yeah, I had the same one, but
we decided to put in an appendix the breakdown of the cost and the assignment of the different activities to their level. Just, for simplicity. I didn't have anything else I really wanted to add. What did you want to add, Josh?
well, yeah, in my mind, and I, I think the difficulty with a 2-person subcommittee is you can have fairly different views, and I don't know, if it's necessarily representative of the other council members. But my comment is, and I've reviewed this, we were only able to meet once on this. And I really don't feel like much has changed between what we looked at initially and what we had. I think some of my concerns still persist, and maybe they'd be allayed if there was an appendix, but and I might be the only one who feels this way, but I generally was uncomfortable with, level 2 and level 3 activities. I didn't like the city being in the business of picking which types of recreation programs it was going to subsidize and which ones it didn't. We have people in the city who have a variety of interests, and whether that be musical or tennis or sport we don't have, why do we choose to subsidize some of those and others we don't? And some of that still persists in that methodology for me, particularly without the appendix, and to see what activities we're putting in 2 and 3 still. So Ryan, I don't know, does you recall this from our conversation? At least this was my personal view on this. Is there something I'm missing? I just didn't feel like many changes were made there, but.
As I sent this back out to the committee, I didn't get that response back. I know we talked about some things when we were there. We can obviously add some things into it. I would recall that some of the things that we talked about are better in a master plan, a recreation and park master plan. And so there was some discussion that once we got to there, that was the other piece of the pie. This was the cost recovery on these particular items, not necessarily a choice of some of the issues, but I thought we had discussed this one, that we were adding a 6th layer and we were kind of taking out specifics. But then when we came to the master plan, we would delve into some definite more detail into those kind of things. And that's where the detail was going to be had. Is that not?
I do recall some of that. I guess my lingering concern is that we'll pass a recreation philosophy and cost recovery methodology that will immediately, be subsidizing level 2 and level 3 activities while we generate a recreation plan that might influence that. So I guess I'd love to hear from another council member. I haven't spoke with any of them about this, but how they feel about, not our I don't know what you'd call them, our advanced leagues, because I think those are clear level 6 activities. We discussed that wouldn't be subsidizing those. But I mean, everything from a club soccer to a tennis lessons. I think there was some, Scarlett, remind me, we had it was listed here as some sort of summer program, but it's not listed on the page anymore. I don't remember the name of it. Summer sessions or something.
It's on level
Fun in the
4.
Sun.
Oh, Fun in the Sun. It is still listed as level 4. I guess a popular program, but I just didn't understand why the city was covering some of those costs. So I might be all alone on that one, but that's just kind of the way I see things. So I guess I want to hear from another council member.
We need to wait for the appendix.
It's interesting that most of the examples or most of the levels have examples, but I mean, 3 kind of does. But is it the master plan that determines what level something is?
No, at this point, we removed examples out of the levels because I don't think we saw anything in level 2 or really in level 3, other than level 3, non-exclusive use. But I don't think we had any that were specifically left over in level 2. So level 1 is general park maintenance. We cover maintaining parks.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that at 100%. The 100-mile club, it's pretty simple. If people participate, we have a little trinket they get, maybe a water bottle or something. So it's not at a high cost. So that's why we haven't done anything as far as cost recovery. It'd take more to recover the cost than it would be to give out a small gift. We could do a t-shirt that's $10-15 or something. The level 2, I think as we talked, there wasn't really anything left in level 2, but it could be something that, community benefit. Level 3, non-exclusive use of the park pavilion rental. They're not reserving the entire park, but they're reserving the pavilion. That's kind of the thing there. To Josh's point, we did have level 4, and we could combine level 4 to level 5 that Level 5 pays for their costs and it tries to just recoup the cost. The Fun of the Sun recreational sports, these are things that we put on as a city. We sponsor them in order to help a broader range of people to attend and participate instead of just those that could maybe afford the whole cost. We spread it out over more and try to drive increased participation. But these are one recreation programs that we're putting on. We put on the Fun of the Sun. We teach the lessons. We do the recreational sports. So it is trying to help. This isn't competitive. So at competitive level, they get to level 5 or 6, and they're paying their full cost. But when we're putting on that's what level 4 is. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to comment on that, and that's because I think as I recall, I was surprised we have level 2 and 3 because I think we agreed with the park rental on level 3, but there really was nothing in there. So I thought, why did those exist? On level 4 and 5, I guess my thought with this is, and this is why it was coupled with community engagement, was at the end of the. And now I realize that needs to be a different plan. We talked about that needing a kind of its own plan, but. As we look at budget for these, if we're paying city budget, I see the city's primary responsibilities as maintaining and providing facilities and parks of stellar quality that are open and available to anyone all the time, and that's where the budget ought to be spent. And events that are community based that anyone can participate in. I guess regarding level 4, if that's the case, I don't see. If I'm a parent and I'm going to pay to have my children play soccer, which admittedly they don't, I'm just going to throw soccer out as an example. I don't think, at least for me, $100 versus $125 or $200 versus $250 is going to sway my participation with child in soccer. But the money from that that the city would have could go quite a ways to put towards, more facilities, better facilities, larger free community events to engage with people. And so that's why philosophically, I'm just not on board with number 4.
So I thought you were not on board with 2 and 3 because
nothing sits in there. I'm not on board with 2, 3, or 4, but there's no.
Because if nothing sits in 2 and 3, then why do we have them? I agree with that. Except pavilion rental, that makes sense. If that's not level 3.
Josh, you're muted somehow.
That's probably the way you like me, is muted. I stay muted the whole time. Did you hear anything I said? Or
okay. At the end.
Oh, okay. I know I agree with Carrie. I didn't understand why 2 and 3 were there, and I'd probably take out 4, and I'd say, we have people cover the costs of the things that we have, and the money that we get from the taxpayers, we try to put in to make our facilities better, acquire new facilities. I mean, we've already talking about acquiring land for new parks and things, and I think we're gonna have to make some hard decisions about where we and how we use those city dollars. So,
can I say something about this?
Sure.
When we met and we discussed this and the levels, I think we determined we don't really have anything currently in those levels, but I think it's good practice to have the options, because if you have, a city breakfast or something like that, and we as a city say that's community engagement, that's going to have to fall somewhere in those levels. We might say that people are going to pay for half of the breakfast and we're going to pick up half of the breakfast, or whatever it is that we determine. Without the methodology, we don't have any category to put types, community engagement types of things in. And I think it's good to have a formula to establish the cost. I mean, before we did this, I talked to several cities in the valley about how they do this, and a lot of them just shoot from the hip that they don't really have a standard operating procedure on how they break down costs. I think that's why we kept those levels, not necessarily because we have anything assigned to them at this time, but that we have the cost structure and the methodology to determine those costs.
I don't see any harm in leaving them with that in mind.
I just don't want to subsidize baseball anymore, and it looks like this will meet that objection that I've had. And I do feel like community engagement, we saw with the survey that, only 3.5% of the people think that there's community engagement. So some of these lower levels or higher levels, lower levels would get those things. And we might be doing some of those to get that community sense of community.
Yeah, I do think that the details would be helpful. I mean, we did discuss that the details in the appendix would be something that the council wants to see, but we don't need to see it like continuously. I think Ryan told me that that's something that we would see at least annually. Is that right?
What we would do is we would calculate on a consolidated rate schedule, and the consolidated rate schedule would have the rates, and that is where we would look at different rates for different things. That includes all the rates that we have, whether it's water, sewer, whether it's different tiers. If we go through it usually that happens in January, December, January, you look at those, you do your evaluation of all the different costs, and you come back with that. The nice thing about doing that in the December, January timeframe, then when you come in March and April for budget, you have that ready, and then they kick in during the summer, rather than putting it in resolution at this point, and then having this place that has particular rate calculations, and somewhere else that has different rate calculations. That consolidated rate schedule, and we have one. I would just look at it having being one we update on an annual basis, generally December, January timeframe.
Okay. I mean, do you guys feel like you want to see the appendix? Do you feel like that would be helpful to you to move forward with the approval of the methodology, or do you feel like you have the information you want? Do you see things that you'd like different?
Do you want to continue it and visit
I'm okay with it the way it is.
Mine.
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. 3 okays with it?
Should we vote on it? Because I made a motion.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Yep.
All right, all in favor of item number 2, resolution 011-2020, recreation philosophy and cost recovery methodology. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Nay?
I'm a nay.
Okay, so we have Councilman Paulson voting nay, all the others are yes vote. All right, thank you. Let's move on. Item number 3, update 100 South, 200 West to approximately 400 West. Providence City Council will hear an update on 100 South from 2nd West to approximately 400 West. Since the last council meeting, a lot has transpired. I don't know how much the council knows. If you talk to Ryan, you probably have, but Ryan's going to lead the discussion on this and talk about where we've gone and what we've accomplished with the property owners on 100 South.
So originally we issued payment, as I indicated to the council before. We issued payment based on the appraisals we received, and the property owners received those. They responded by calling the ombudsman's office, which is a good second option for them. And so the ombudsman's office came out, or an appraiser from there came out, visited with them, helped them understand some of the differences of why one was paid one rate, one was paid a different rate. And so it was very helpful. I visited with Mark Thompson, and we visited about a few different things. He indicated that he and Jeff's wanted paid for the radius, which we hadn't calculated because we just calculated to the 50-foot mark, 50-foot right-of-way marks, but they wanted calculated for that. So we added that, and there was a little difference in dollar amount. So in total, the original payments was $101,300 between all of them, and this additional amount is approximately 13,800. And so we're looking to proceed on. It's well within the amount we had looked at for budget. And so at that point, it's within what we expected. And so we've written a letter and we're looking to proceed with that this week. And so at that point, that would complete the 50-foot right of way. As my discussion with Mark was, and he's indicated he's representing the group, and he has been able to do that, I think successfully. They talked and said, if we want to purchase the additional 16 feet to go from the 50 foot to the 66, that there's a few things they'd want. One, they indicated that they'd take the same square footage price, and so that equates to, I think, if I calculate it right, somewhere between 45,000 and 50,000. I know we have some of that we already have, so that's a rough number. But to give you a ballpark of where we're talking about number-wise, and so if we were willing to do that, and then if we were willing to commit to a time frame in which we would build and complete the road, widen it, and be able to have that. And so my proposal to the council, it wasn't a proposal to them, but I proposed to the council that we would commit and say, let's do the 16 feet extra, and let's commit that we would complete the road in 3 years. That's kind of what our budget is presenting. That gives us two shots of the apple with the COG, and possibly a shot at the grant application with the CMPO to get federal highway funding. So it gives us an opportunity and gives us a window. We'd probably be able to complete that quicker, but if we look at 3 years, that 3-year window gives us several opportunities for grant funding, and not just one. And I think, when I talked to Mark, he talked about 2 years. I don't think he would be opposed. I haven't tossed up the 3-year mark, but I think if we put that out there and we plan for it and we commit to that, I think they'd sell us the extra footage, and we could get this completed and done and move on. If that's what we want, if that's what the city wants, I think we've come to a spot that we could get this accomplished. And I think they would be happy, and I think we'd be able to add to our connectivity and be able to have a good quality road that hopefully expansion happens and things progress. So I think it's been positive. I've been holding off getting back with him because I want to get with you to know if that's something you're interested in. If we want to have negotiations about specifics of the negotiation, we probably ought to have land inside of a closed session. But generally, if we're interested in where we're at, then I'd like to proceed. If not, then I want to have better direction.
Good news.
So
Real good news.
Ryan, do you know what the cost would be to construct thank you for getting the land acquisition cost. That's something that I requested, and I know you're working at the last city council meeting. Do you know what the cost of construction would be for that road yet at either of those widths?
So at this point, the ballpark number we've been given is 600, but we have not got an engineer that has gone through to do a cost estimate. I could, but at this point, we don't have a firm cost estimate that way.
I think it's going to be north of $750,000, or we probably, our tolerance range is within $100,000 of $600,000.
Yeah, I think so.
And is that excluding the land purchase, or do we add that?
Yeah.
So we're about 650, maybe.
But the cost doesn't come to Providence, right? The cost, we would most likely be able to get grant money to cover it.
Most likely there is potential for grant money to get a large portion, especially where we've already paid our match for the COG and probably our match for the CMPO. They probably both count that right-of-way acquisition towards our match money that we'd have to have had anyway. So yeah, there's probably a pretty good chance. depending on, they're competitive. And so it depends on what else is there. But that's why if we had 3 years, I think we could have a better chance at getting funding if we don't just take one shot of the apple. I think 3 chances on different approaches is a good way to go. I think that's our best option to get grant funding that way.
Couple things. The engineers gave us an estimate to acquire the right of way, not to acquire it, but to pay for the right of way. And I think it was $350,000. Because I think what we applied for COG money was $321,000. The COG money came in at $281. So we're at, I mean, with Ryan's numbers, we're less than half of what the original estimate was. That's good news. That's one thing. Ryan and I've had discussions when we're talking budget about some issues we're going to have to tiptoe around, and that is when Ryan talks to some of his city manager associates, there's a big concern about tax revenue, sales tax revenue to the city, and we may be off by 40%. And I think, I don't know what our budget is for this year, 1.1 million in sales tax revenue. So do the math, that's a big chunk. So when Ryan says, maybe this is really, we're looking at 3 years out. Keep in mind that when our city is impacted, so is the COG as far as funds available. So that may push it out. So, but the COG is doing some things because there's some money out there on existing projects that are probably wrapped up and can free up money. I don't know what that's going to end up. So it probably won't be June until the COG meets. I spoke to Jeff Gilbert today about that. We'll have better information. My recollection is the engineer's estimate for everything was $750,000. So if $750,000 of that 300 was the right-of-way acquisition, then maybe the construction number is closer to 450,000. The other thing, and Ryan said, you know what, the best time to do construction work is when the economy is slow and contractors are struggling and they want to keep their trades busy and their crew working and on the payroll.
So Mayor, thank you for that. And your financial background is certainly helpful with that. I don't know. And I appreciate bringing up sales tax. I think I was worried about that last time too. That could be tough.
Yep.
My issue for this one, and I appreciate that it's on the agenda. I think Brent and I, in the last city council meeting, according to the meetings, the minutes, asked that it be on for a discussion item to either affirm or reconsider the opening of it. And the only reason I wanted that is I realize it might take 3 years. I'm not opposed to the road. I'm concerned about the cost, and I'm concerned about the current state of it for 2 to 3 years, as is. I've tried to drive it once a week since it opened. It's been really quiet down there, fortunately, because there's been no cars on the road, and there's a sign that says no outlet. So I don't think there's been a lot of traffic, but I'm concerned about the winter traffic on that road. I'd really like to see the grant money, because just, if we're at $750,000, that's $318 per Providence household. So I look at that and think, am I willing to pay, that's based upon what our housing estimates were, how many households we had in our general plan. Am I willing to pay $320 out of my own pocket to have that road open? And I'm not there yet, but if COG money wanted to pay for it, I think it'd be fine. But I'm concerned about the road. I think we should proceed with acquiring the right of way. I think we ought to buy when we can, because I think that will happen. I don't want to pay those costs, 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road. But I don't, maybe Rob would speak to this. I'm worried about winter safety on the road. And I just want to make sure we get and I'd like to make sure it gets mostly paid for by COG money or grant money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the youth walking on that road in the 2 or 3 year period too. That's been one of my major concerns, because when it was really early on discussed back in July or August, whenever it was, there was a pretty good assurance that that road would be built with monies that would be available very soon. And I think the mayor's got an absolutely fantastic point, is sales tax is down. and is going to continue to be down. And they're not predicting a real fast recovery, which is understandable. People are scared and they're not anxious to get out and only do things that are necessary. But youth, come this fall, will be walking on that road. I'm just concerned that, and I'm not opposed to the road being open. And I think we've already taken the initial steps. We've cut the dog's tail off. The pain is over. Let's get the road done. But the period of time now, it's going to bleed for 2 or 3 years. And that was kind of a conception that was given. It was going to happen faster than that. Are we premature in removing the barriers until we got everything in place? Not that I don't want to see the road done, because that's fine. Let's go ahead with it. But are we just going to, what happens in 3 years if we don't have the money? Are we going to come back to the citizens?
As it is for very long. I mean, I've just 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, and then it widens to 50 feet or 30, whatever that is, Ryan, when you get down by the other. So yeah,
I would guess 36 or 30 to 36.
37.
37.
It widens to 37. So we've got a bottleneck creating there down to 15. Honestly, it's just that I wish we had all the pieces in place here, and I'd like to do the pieces that we can, like acquiring the right of way, but boy, it just feels like the dog's tail's bleeding a little bit. So
one thing to
I
consider.
drove that road a couple days ago, and I know you initially with it, it gets so narrow as you head east, but with the parking limitations in that development, all the parking on the side sort of keeps it narrow.
Nobody parks on that
I felt like when I drove it down there.
development sign of the townhouse. I think she's talking.
Oh,
Yeah, the townhouse and kind of maintain the width of the road. So I feel like the traffic coming out of the roundabout heading east is going to be a lot slower than if it was coming out of the roundabout headed west into the commercial district. I think that's where the speeds are going to pick up.
One thing to consider, I think you have a lot harder time getting grant funding with a road closed to build a road. I think if you're going to get grant funding, my experience is you get grant funding on open roads and uncontested issues. If they're willing to, I think we've got a lot better chance. If we close the road or if we did something that way, I think our chances of completing the road with grant funding is drastically reduced. Something to consider.
Christina and Carrie, fellow council members, I'd be curious I honestly haven't talked with any council members about this. I just have tried to come up with my own assessment. If you don't mind, I'd like to hear what you think.
I'll go. I had some conversations with some of the citizens on 485 West, because I always wondered, have the people on First South that are, they have big voices. And I always didn't understand why I wasn't hearing any voices from the people on 485 West, because when we put that roundabout in, when the development came, all those townhomes, those guys are getting a ton of traffic. And I wondered, is that fair to them? And then I talked to a few of them. It was interesting. Not one of them they told me they were really frustrated by it and so glad First South is going to be open because it'll alleviate traffic on their road. But they were not willing to write an email or talk to any councilman about it and I talked to two, and then I got a list of a few others. They said, we're not willing to talk to anyone about it because the people on First South are their ward members, and it's more important for them to keep harmony in the neighborhood, especially when their bishop is also on First South. So that was interesting. And I understand your concerns about cost, Josh, but I think as a whole, we look at all the traffic that goes down Third South, and if we're not going to open up First South, we're just going to be replacing and fixing First South and First North. So yes, it will cost money. I do believe if we shut it, we're going to have a fight with COG. And I think that if it would have been open, we would have had better luck with COG already. And so I think when you move forward with faith that we're going to get and try our hardest to get as much money as possible, And I think we need to open it up and be smart about it. The sooner the better, but let's try to get what we can for the COG money.
That's a good point, Christina. And I think that's also a good point from Ryan about the fact that, yeah, if you close it and shut it down, they're probably it won't be high on their priority list. Probably very, very good points. Is there any way we can mitigate with the safety issue versus opening up and keeping it open right now? Are we doing enough? Is it patrol? Is it what do we do?
I'll cut in for just a quick second. I've been driving it almost daily since we opened it as well. And I've talked to a few people that have driven it fairly regularly. And safety at this moment does not seem to be a concern in my mind or any of the people that I've talked to that have been kind of taking it. In fact, they've all been kind of impressed on how good of a road it is. The 15-mile-an-hour aspect of it with the safety aspects that we put in it, at this time, it doesn't have major concerns for safety in anybody I've talked to's minds. We can continue to monitor that. And like,
Are those residents, Rob? Have residents talked to you? They're like, "Oh, this is better than we thought." I haven't heard from residents in.
Not the residents on First South. No, I have not talked to them directly since we opened it. But there's quite a few people that have been driving it, and strangely enough, there's not that much traffic still. And I'm not surprised by that, because I thought Gateway Drive and the new First South roundabout would get a lot more traffic than it did. You know, in the time that it's been there, it's still not as busy as I anticipated because of such a convenient factor to get between First and Third South. So,
you know, like, I'm not gonna drive on First South right now because I don't want my car to get dirty. So a lot of people will do that too until it gets paved.
It's kind of paved. It's not. You can drive it and not get dirty.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm with Christina. What you could do is if you have a Quick Quack membership, you can go straight to Quick Quack.
I do have a Quick Quack membership.
And wash it off, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna get some dust out of your car. So.
Well, we can continue to monitor the safety aspects of it. It's better than quite a few different roads that I drive on periodically as far as safety goes. I don't know if you've been through Millville lately, but no.
Well, or even some of the, sorry, I don't mean to diss on roads, but we've got a lot more safety issues in the city. I rode on one the other day and I was like, "Holy smokes."
My favorite road with the safety issue, and Josh, you can relate to this, and anybody who lives up in Highlands, Cary as well. Coming down Canyon Road westbound, and you go around the curve, and then you're on 100 East. I think almost once a year someone slides off that road.
Yeah, I think that's scheduled for improvements. I'm more concerned about pedestrians on that road because there's only small shoulders and it's blind. But
there's right. No shoulder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Several years ago, we tried to, it's a long, I'd have to explain it, go through a long description of it, but there is a city-owned right-of-way, and we were talking about utilizing that for pedestrian traffic that would route pedestrians, especially students, a different direction. And there was a very short parcel of land we needed access to. It was Doran Baker's and Kathy Baker's property. And we even had the trails guy come out from the county, and he did all the renderings and everything. It looked great. And Doran and Kathy said no. The other thing is that when we had the conversation with Max, in order to widen that road, because we've got a steep drop off on one side, we've got a steep incline on the other side. We'd have to dig into the hillside. We'd have to take two houses out and their property, looking at $5 or $6 million just to approve 2 blocks.
Yeah. Well, back to 100 South, I had talked to Ryan previously, and so I had recognized that we needed to keep it open in order to apply for COG money, and that settled my concerns with how much additional money it's going to cost Providence. I feel like, you know, putting the 3-year window on it is really worst case scenario. I think the hope is that we get funding the first time we apply, but it just gives us a little extra time. And to use Brent's analogy, that the tail's already cut off. So let's do what we need to do to make it, to heal it, which to me is leave the road open, monitor the safety, and move forward so that we can get that road finished.
So best case is we apply for grant funds this year. We do design work this year, and construction would start in the spring of next year.
Correct.
We wouldn't see it happen this year.
No,
Right.
that would be best case scenario.
Well, let's give it our best shot.
I think the traffic will, I mean, right now there's so little traffic. Without spring soccer, you can take a left there at Zollinger Park, no problem, you know, so the traffic might be less of an issue this summer than anticipated, you know, than it would have been, we would have thought 2 months ago. So I think the traffic is just going to, people will get in the habit eventually, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, of using that road, but it takes a while. We're creatures of habit.
Hey, Rob, oh, sorry, I'm on mute, I think. No, I'm not on
No,
mute.
we can
No,
hear
you're
you.
fine.
Rob, I don't know if it was recently, a couple weeks ago, that no outlet sign was still up there. Is that no outlet sign up? I'm wondering.
Yeah, I thought there's actually 3 or 4 signs that still need to come down related to.
Well,
And-
I'm almost of the opinion, I don't know if it's legal, but I'm of the opinion, maybe kind of leave them up
I left them up.
and just try to keep traffic on that road light.
Yeah, the legal aspects, you're right, is a little bit questionable. However, because of, in light of the last council meeting about this discussion we're having now, is why I left them up, just to see what happened with this council meeting. And then I pondered taking them down or leaving them up based on the outcome of this conversation.
I mean, it's not the same as putting a stop sign where there shouldn't be a stop sign or not having one, you know, but
Right.
I worry about the safety use, but I'm okay with what Carrie said. Like, I mean, I would just like to keep a close tabs. My primary concern is safety as it is, and then the cost and you know, I feel like it ought to be paid for by COG money. But if you feel like we've got 2 or 3 chances to get it, I'm comfortable with that.
We
Can we
have
have Chad weigh in on the signs?
Chad.
Yes, as far as weigh in on them, as far as,
Do they have to be taken down?
Signs in place that are not really true.
I would, this is what I would say, is I would say that, and based on my understanding now, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had engineers look at this. We've had people look at it. It's not, there really is no safety issue there. Now, I do understand that there's, you know, we're concerned about people walking on the road. There's not a big shoulder there and stuff, but as from my understanding and everything that I've seen, that road is not a dangerous road. I personally don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't just take the signs down and treat it like it's an open road. It's in my opinion, again, it's better for the city and so forth. So legally speaking, I'm always uncomfortable with leaving a sign somewhere that is misleading. So I guess that would be my point.
And Rob, are you going to be maintaining that over the next couple of years? Are we going to pave it or anything? I'm kind of curious what your plan is.
Well, the double chip seal that we did last year will probably last 3 to 5 years, you know, at least. We might do some extra treatments, you know, as far as maintaining the chip seal.
Well, I won't cancel my Quick Quack membership yet. Then I'll go ahead.
At
yeah,
that
well-
point, UDOT would classify a double chip seal as an asphalt road. We're talking about it, but a double chip seal in UDOT's classification is an asphalt road. it is used with asphalt oil and has asphalt down. That's the classification. So when we're talking about it, keep in mind,
Yeah,
this is an
it's
asphalt
not a
road.
dusty road anymore
No.
or muddy.
I would leave the signs as a recommendation, council. I would leave signs up to administration and public works. Let us take care of signs. This would be one of those weed items I'd recommend that you leave in Rob's hand. He's very capable in what he does. Let's just leave him to do his job.
It's a
That's
weed,
my
it's a weed
recommendation.
item, Ryan says.
I hate weeds.
So that I understand on this agenda item, one, it's allowed that Josh, we've talked, is you talked about wanting to have a vote plus up or down to keep the road open or closed. I think that this agenda item would allow that. The second thing I'd like to be able to know, are you willing to let me go back and commit to 3 years with the residents so I can finish buying the rest of the right of way? Those are two
Repeat
things.
that. You think the agenda item would allow an up or down vote to affirm to state up? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I requested on the agenda, and yeah, I appreciate the 3-year thing. So
I believe this agenda item allows both of those to happen if you so inclined.
So does there need to be a movement before he can call for a vote?
A motion.
Motion.
Yes, a motion would be appropriate.
Motion, movement?
I like the motion better.
Gary, make a motion.
I motion that we vote to approve the opening of 100 South.
It's already
Okay.
open.
To keep
To keep it open.
To keep 100 South open.
And to
Okay,
move
and-
forward with what Ryan has requested.
You want both in the same motion?
That's
You
fine.
can do that.
Okay, and to approve the acquisition of the rest of the property with a 3-year completion.
Okay. What about the grant? Make that part of the motion.
Sure. And to allow us to go to seek for COG funding.
And allowed to seek COG funding as soon as possible and as often as needed.
that was a total fruit salad. What else are you going to throw
Motion,
in there?
Carrie, can you repeat? Carrie, can you
It's like the
repeat your?
federal rescue package right there. That was like $2.2 trillion and 100 things.
Hold on, I think the mayor wants to have a repeat of the motion.
Carrie, can you repeat your motion?
You're kidding me, right?
If you want.
It's my job to make sure everybody's clear on what the motion is.
Let's have it
Everyone
read back.
clear?
Have it read back.
Okay, there are 3 things. I make a motion that we approve to keep 100 South open, that we, funding, purchase, move forward with the purchase of the land, and
Okay.
allow for up to 3 years to get COG funding and apply for that as soon as we can.
3 years to construct the road, and the 4th
3
item
years to construct the road.
was to move forward with the process to apply for grant funding, COG funding. So there's 4 points. Keep the 100 South open. Authorize Ryan to continue negotiating with the property owners for the remaining purchase of the property. Acknowledge the city will have the road constructed within 3 years. That we would assure the property owners. And the fourth thing is to prepare all the documents and paperwork for a COG grant application. That right, Carrie?
Yes,
Okay, all right, so that's your motion. I heard a second from Councilwoman Eck. Okay,
Can I
Mayor,
make
may I
an
make a
amendment?
request? May I make a request that we have just because I would prefer to vote this way, just a roll call vote on this. I know we're not living formally by Robert's Rules of Order, but would that be permitted? So I might comment.
Sure,
when I make the vote.
that's fine.
Can I
Oh,
amend the motion?
No, yes, no, you can't amend the motion. The person that made the motion has to amend it.
But I'll take a suggestion.
Well, the completion of the road in 3 years, if we're working to get COG money within a 3-year period,
Then the
how will we
completion won't be
complete
3
the
years.
road?
That's a good clarification. The completion of the road is what we're designing for 3 years. That gives us 2 years to apply for COG funding this year and next year and completing the third. So you're correct. We only have 2 years to apply for COG funding, but 3 years to complete the road
Or other source of grant. money.
or other source.
Okay, so it's a 2-year period by completion in 3 years. That's fine. So I understand.
Funding in 2.
Yeah, we would look for funding in those 2 funding applications with COG and complete construction in 3 years. Yes, that's what we're looking at.
Okay, let's do a roll call. I'll go from the left of my screen to the right.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Kirk.
Aye. Yay.
Yay. Aye, okay. Speth.
Yes.
All right. Eck.
Yes.
Yes. Seeley.
Yes.
Yes. Paulson.
I'll make a couple comments on vote if that's okay. I just I appreciate Christina Eck's comments. I have observed, well, I haven't spoke with residents 485, and I think we have an issue there that's equally traffic and safety issues. And I am of the opinion that 100 South will alleviate what we're seeing on 485 proportionately. And I used to live in that ward, so I know the dynamic that might exist there, and I can imagine people being uncomfortable with talking about that. My other concern is taxpayer funds, and I believe, at least with what we've discussed here, that the clear plan is to go ahead and pursue several paths to not use Providence taxpayer dollars, which I don't think is a wise use of funds, but external funds to do it. And I think the council and myself are committed to ongoing monitoring the safety of that road. And I think we would be quick to respond if we saw that there was a safety issue that arose. At least I hope so. I know I would be.
Is that a yes? No. At the roll call vote that you called for.
The roll call vote, because I wanted to provide some context, and you're fair enough to push me on it. That's a yes.
Context goes before the vote, so.
Yeah, that's a yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, it's unanimous. Jesse, thank you so much. Good discussion. All right, let's move on to legislative items. We have the big gorilla, and that's the general plan. So we'll move on to that. Resolution 004-2020, general plan. Providence City Council will consider for adoption a resolution adopting the general plan and associated key initiatives, objectives, and goals. This will be a vote. I need a motion to adopt the resolution.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the general plan.
Motion from Councilman Speth. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Councilwoman Eck. Discussion. Ryan, you want to lead this? You want to just introduce it and we'll go from it?
I think it's been on the site. I think that we've all read it. I've received comments from all of you in relation to it. I think the subcommittee worked very hard in that, I think very successfully. Carrie, I did get yours, and the newest version that got sent out did have those corrections for technical corrections. I think it is what it is. We can go over it. We can go through it. We've been over it, and it's been out there. Hopefully, all have had a chance to really delve into it. This is the starting domino. This is where we get our big umbrella. This is the broad brush, and then as we get into the individual master plans, they should come back to this as a reference document. So hopefully, we've all had a chance. if there's any questions, I'm happy to take those, but I would leave it at that. And the committee members are intimately involved in where this went. We met several times. So I think we had very good, productive discussions. So anyway, if there's questions for me, I'm happy to, but.
For me, I've read it and reread it, and I do not love everything about it, but I think that, you know, when you're working with a big team, then sometimes there's give and take and push and pull. And I would really love to see us move forward with the roads plan and the parks plan. And the way to do that is to move forward on the general plan. And so even though I don't love everything about it, I think it's a good starting place. So I feel good about it, or good enough.
Okay. Anyone else?
Christina and we kept working from 80,000 feet. We had to come down to 30,000 feet or vice versa. We're not sure which, but we got tired of going without oxygen. So this is the best we could come together. I think myself that it's probably a good view from 30,000 feet. And it tries not to be too specific in detail, which is what we want. We felt like that's what we were after. I feel like that we did try and massage it to come up with a pretty good plan. At least I felt good, and I think Christina did. Christina, speak for yourself.
I was grateful for Ryan's input. We're really lucky to have Ryan and his knowledge.
We are.
Not happy with the company that did this. I hope we don't hire them again. After we were going through it and realizing, you know, why is this in here and how did this, anyway, yeah, we did good, I thought. Well, let me just tell you. Can I tell you how many times the previous council sat and mulled over this? And we were not looking at it from a 30,000 foot view. We were getting into the weeds, and it was difficult, and it was a lot of meetings. And I felt like Ryan directed us of where we needed to be, looking at it as a more broad instead of, you know, worrying about the small details, and helped us manage, do a lot better job with it. So if we can just not hire this company again, I would be grateful.
So I don't think the company had much to do with it at all. I think it was the planning commission. And
no, there was a lot of there was a lot of boilerplate boilerplate verbiage in there that didn't fit, and unless the planning commission came up with that.
Well, when it came to the council, and you and I and the rest of the council recognize that, first of all, it has languished in the planning commission for a long time, and we're losing our patience. The other thing is, when the document did come to us, yes, we did need to get into the weeds, but I think much of that should have been done on the planning commission level. That's where I have the fault. But nevertheless, Ryan's been through this. I mean, keep in mind the last general plan was the year 2000. Here, fast forward 17 years later, the council says, you know what, we're way past due. Let's get this thing moving forward. And now here we are 20 years later, and we've got something to consider for adoption. It's not perfect. It's a good outline. It's a good starting point. My recommendation is the council review the general plan every year and say how, you know, and it's a plan. Is we review it and say, what have we accomplished? Just so the council doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, is to revisit what the initiatives were and say, are we on track with these? Is there anything that would warrant changing any of it, refining any of it, updating any of it? Because the economy's changed, whatever. That's something that didn't happen for 17 years. And I think once we've gotten past this, it's much easier to revisit once a year than it is to try and do it once every 20 years. So to Carrie's point, it's not perfect. Not all of us are going to like everything that's there, but I think it's a good starting point. It's a good document. And I'm glad Ryan helped lead us out of the weeds.
Well, and in saying that, I don't love everything about it, I do want the planning commission and the previous council to know that their work is appreciated and we aren't just starting over from all the effort that they put into it, because they obviously put a lot of time and effort and thought, and so that should be acknowledged.
Yes, and much of the planning commission turned over during those 3 years as well.
So Mayor, may I have some comments? That'd be okay.
Sure, go ahead, Josh.
I first of all, I appreciate Christina and Brent for taking the lead on this, because I remember when that happened, and I think you kind of got voluntold to do it and do that, and it was a big undertaking, and so I'm appreciative of that. I have seen that there've been some changes, and I acknowledge the previous council too. I see Carrie's point as well. I think it's important to realize that, boy, this is not going to be a perfect document. That is just, I've managed my expectations with that. I'm really happy to have one. Where I sit today, and I've, and I also want to thank Ryan, because I do, and I believe this is important. This general plan has been circulated again the last couple months, and that was one of the things I really wanted. It was on social, it was in the newsletter, it got circulated again. People had a chance, that there were plenty of opportunities to provide comment. I didn't hear from a lot of people. I only heard from a few, just to let you know. Where I sit today with it, I would love to improve the plan in its entirety, but I have serious concerns still, and wish we could resolve them as a council with Initiative 6, which was labeled life cycle housing, and I think in this latest iteration was relabeled various housing opportunities. Some of the things in that moderate income housing plan I know have been taken out. There's a lot of ones that are in there that I'm uncomfortable with still. And then this is going to sound great. This is going to sound like it's plan breaking, but it's not. I honestly don't like the vision that it's written there. I think we've tried to appeal to both sides, and I think it kind of lacks some teeth. I know in my comments to Brent and Christina, because this is what I do for a living, is write succinct copy and marketing message. I wrote some options in there that I think that I thought had a little bit more staying power. So just where I'm going to be at today is, and I don't know who made the motion for the plan. I wouldn't mind approving the plan initiatives 1 through 5, and I wish we could take another meeting on Initiative 6 and talk about things in Initiative 6 and work that out. And then I think we'd be there. We have to have Initiative 6 because, as I understand it, Mayor, we have to have a moderate income housing plan in our general plan. Is that right? I mean, it's part of it
by state law. In fact, we have to adopt it every year. It used to be
every year. So I understand that needs to be done. It needs to be done by the state. And I think that's where some people are hung up on that. I'm still hung up on those things. So I would ask, I don't know whoever made the motion, if we can, so we can move this along. I'd like to see us approve the plan, except for Initiative 6 and the moderate income housing plan, see if we can spend one more meeting and hammer some issues out there. So that's my.
The motion was made by Councilman Speth, second by Councilwoman Heck.
If we're going, go ahead.
Why we couldn't hammer those things out right now, Josh? Because we did look at all your comments, and there was reasons for, I don't remember exactly, but there was we looked at every single comment that you and Carrie sent. I think Janelle maybe sent some comments.
I sent a lot of comments to Josh on that section 6, and I went through it with Ryan because I wanted it completely eliminated, but it seemed like legally the things that they left had to be left. So I think we need to just approve the plan after we discuss it tonight.
Well, and I'm just looking forward to getting on with our other master plans.
May I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
If we're going to revisit this on an annual basis, would it be wise to then focus directly on a specific plan for moderate income housing that would have in another year amend this one?
As long as we follow state code.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm not trying to taken away from state code. Oh, that's not what I'm saying. I think I maybe don't understand totally state code on moderate income housing. And maybe that I was hoping to get some more clarification at some of the league meetings. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I'm probably going to have to do this on my own, or we create a workshop on moderate income housing so we get a better foundation for it, a better understanding for it, and see if we can modify section 6 for a upcoming modification to this in a year, so that we have a foundation here now, but we can modify it in a year. We understand that. Is that reasonable or is that not?
Well,
Brent, absolutely.
First of all, Brent, to your point, what a lot of cities do is they'll pick sections of the general plan and they'll rotate through them every 3 years. But as I mentioned earlier, this part of the general plan has to be revisited every year anyway. So that's an ideal time to discuss making changes to it.
I really like Brent's idea of having a workshop to help us better understand, because I'm just going off trust.
Should we bring in some outside people to explain things and help us out on that?
But they do, like Brent said, they do a lot of classes in the league meetings. And so I too was looking forward to going because I learn a lot every time I go, but I was looking forward to all of you attending also, because it's so much and they talk so much about this. I'm passionate about this also because I live this every day.
Yep.
At work, and we've got to have it. If you knew what our people were dealing with housing right now, you would think that was the crisis right now rather than something else. It's crazy.
Question for Ryan, because Carrie, I think you've had some insights that I didn't have. It sounds like Brent would like to have those as well. One question I just got from someone who's been giving me some comments on this. Ryan, is it does our population size influence what the state can require of us to do regarding moderate income housing? Like, are we of a population that's low enough that like some things don't apply, or we're high enough that they do? Can you speak to that?
I can only speak to slight amount of that. I know that affordable housing plan is required. If you don't have it, the ability to get some grants, some funding, the state will restrict that. I think if you're a town under 1,000, you may not have to do things there, but as a city, we have to have an affordable housing plan. Every city, maybe not towns, but cities do. And
then some of the items are required in there, right? I understand we have so many points that are required. We have choices, but we have to do so many things.
Right, and some of it depends on the county size. Some of it depends on the city classification. But there is some. But I know that we have to have some. And Chad may know. I see him maybe nodding his head. He might have some to put in on that one.
I don't. I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of varied, and I honestly haven't dug into it too deeply. I'd be glad to do a little bit of research and do a report on that if that's something that you would like to know. I've actually got to do something for another client on the affordable housing stuff, so I'll know a lot more about it after I do that. So. If there's anything that's pertinent to Providence City, I could give you guys an update on it.
So is our thoughts then that we table this for a while, or do we adopt this plan with the intent of modifying it as soon as we get better educated or within a year?
Let's approve it.
To approve it.
Again in a year.
Okay, that's still my motion then stays.
All right. Brent, there's no reason why we couldn't say 6 months from now, let's put it on the agenda and open it up for further discussion and establish a committee or do whatever we want.
If we do that, though, I would just say that we do that after the league meetings in September.
Yes, good idea.
That would be great. I just need more education. I'm sorry, I'm stupid, but I do.
Stupid. Right.
Yeah, we all need lots of education. I know I do.
You guys are gonna hate me.
Learn
I'm gonna
every day.
request a roll call vote.
Fine, let's- Mayor, will you call for a vote, please?
Absolutely. All right. On the resolution 0042020 general plan, considering for adoption the general plan associate key initiatives, objectives, and goals. Well, let's start at the top. Councilwoman Kirk,
Yes.
yes. Paulson,
Here's the context. I'll make it brief. I feel like I'm answering to voters, and I realize this previous council worked on this, and I feel like a lot of them wanted to go in a different direction when it came to some of these things. And while I would love to pass it, I'm here to vote for them, and the feedback that I'm getting and where I think they're at is I think they want to go in a different direction, and I'm not comfortable passing where it's at, particularly with the moderate income housing. So I'm going to vote no.
okay. Councilman Speth,
Yes.
okay. Councilwoman Ag,
Yes.
Seeley,
Yes.
Jesse, did you get that? We have one nay, and that was Councilman Paulson.
Yes.
All they are yes. All right, let's move on. Item number 2, under legislative business, discussion accessory dwelling units. This is a discussion item. Providence City Council will discuss city code setback regulations for accessory dwelling units. We have an attached.
That was on based on a request from 2 council members.
And we have the current city code and the history of when each section was adopted. And when I read this, all of the sections of this code were adopted at the same time.
Yeah, this is Mayor, this is on because of the request from Josh, and I'm not sure whether it's Josh and Brent. But when we passed these before, we passed everything except for the changes to the accessory dwelling unit, and it was requested at that time that we have an agenda item for this. So anyway, that's where we're coming from.
I think it related to the, if I recall, my memory's not great, but it was the setbacks for the accessory dwelling units, right? Isn't that what brought this up? It's just that piece.
The setback component.
I think we updated the setbacks, and I amended my amendment to say I'll approve it except for the setbacks for accessory dwelling units, and that would come up at a future meeting. I think it's been 2 meetings though since that's happened.
So
Let him lead the discussion if he wants to talk about it.
go ahead, Josh, if you want to bring up your.
I guess, I mean, I feel similarly to the way that I did. If I remember, this was this fun time where we had individual votes that I think Janelle got. Am I remembering right, Janelle? Did you get kind of caught in the no man's land here for a little bit with your vote?
Yes, I did. I did.
Not a fun place to be.
I'm learning. I have to be very decisive. So this is good.
You
for
either have
me.
to do a roll call or you have to speak up. Yeah, or you stick out.
Detached.
I guess I have a question because I read through this again. A question before I give my comments, Ryan. Help me understand this because I missed this, and believe me, I was in planning and zoning when we started working on this. Explain to me the difference between detached accessory uses and what those space or setback requirements are, and the detached accessory building and what those are. I don't ever remember seeing that before. It didn't register to me.
Are you talking residential structures and accessory uses?
I'm talking our table, area regulations 10.8.1.
I can answer
Okay.
that for you, Ryan, if you don't
Oh.
mind.
Go ahead, Scarlett.
The attached accessory buildings are not for full residential living. So you could have a playroom, you could do some things like that, but they're not intended to turn into a second dwelling structure. the attached accessory units, or I mean, the detached accessory units are specific to be residential living structures.
Oh, okay.
That's
So there's a
different.
typo in the table, which has messed me up. It says detached accessory uses. It does not say units.
Okay,
Am I wrong in that 10.8.1?
I do see that.
So that's a typo. Is that right?
Hey, Jesse here. I think I see where Josh is confused because it says detached accessory building small and detached accessory uses. Is that where you're?
That's where I'm speaking, but I'm hearing Scarlett say that probably should say detached accessory units.
detached accessory units are the residential units that we approved for
That's
living.
fine. Are you
So
looking
these are
at the
uses.
table?
These are
10.8.1?
uses, yes, these are uses that are not meant for residential occupancy. I don't want to say that. They're not meant to be a residential living structure. They're not meant to be a second house. They're meant to be a garage. Some people put game rooms in them, those type of things. But the accessory dwelling units are not on this chart because you asked that we take those out. So the accessory dwelling units aren't on this chart. There's always been the detached accessory uses.
Okay.
And then detached accessory building small. That's been on there for a long time. And that's been one of the things that people have been frustrated with, is that they could build their great big shop and set it 5 feet off the property line. But when it comes to a secondary residential structure, they can't do that. That's one of the comments we got, one of the feedback we got after we put.
I think I was lost.
In.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I was lost because previous iterations had units in there, and I think it was redlined as a change, but it's missing altogether. So this is the approved version. So
right.
I won't find the setbacks for the ADUs anywhere on this table.
Correct. This is the approved version.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember exactly what they are. Can you quote them outright then, the back and side yards? What were they as proposed?
What?
Yeah, what were the recommended from planning and zoning?
Hang on just a minute and I'll pull it up.
Well, we can't have the public just interjecting.
Okay, the detached, the accessory dwelling unit detached. The recommended front yard was 20 in the.
Well, they don't really have a front yard because they can't exist in front of the principal residence.
Right, but there's nothing that says that they can't put them on the side of their house. There's nothing that says they have to be in the backyard. They can't be in front.
What's the side setback then? There's a side setback.
So the side setbacks on the interior side were 10 for most of the residential zones, except for single family high and the mobile home. And those two zones were at 7.5 feet on an interior side. On the street side, it was 20 in the majority of the residential homes, but 25 in 15 in the single family high and the mobile home zone. And then on the rear yard, it was 15 in all residential zones except for the mobile home, and that one was 10.
Yeah, that sounds right. Well, I know where I fit at it. I realize it makes it untenable for a lot of the zones, but I think they ought to go on larger lots. And I'd like to see 20-foot setbacks on side and rear yards for all ADUs. That's where I sit today. So I realize that makes them almost impossible in SFR and below, probably altogether impossible, and then even some SFTs, but that's where I'm at.
So Josh, as a technical item, as if you want to make a change there, what I would recommend is kind of writing up that change. But because it's land use, it's got to go back to the planning and zoning and go.
I don't know if I'm all alone in it. I'm just trying to tell my other council members how I feel. I mean, it may not matter. They might feel differently about it, and and they can vote without me, but that's just where I'm at.
How many accessory dwelling units have been built since this ordinance was written?
Oh, we've heard this before. The number's fewer than 5. I know it's a small number.
So what my point is that the code seems to prohibit or has prohibited any of them from being built at this point.
I maybe, but that's just a theory. It hasn't been out there that long.
Over here.
I'll give my 2 cents. So Josh, you just trying to get the temperature on the rest of us in regards to this?
I know where I'm at. I'm not a huge fan. I think they work in the right situations. And I think I've said before, like, I think it can kind of fundamentally change the character of some neighborhoods and what people perceive as when they purchase their primary residence, kind of what things were going to be like. And I want to respect those property owners' rights. I think there are vested rights there, and I think this can be fairly disruptive. So I think it's reasonable that if they were 20 feet, if it was a 20-foot setback, I mean, that's almost like as large enough setback you'd have for a primary, that's a primary dwelling setback there, essentially is what it is. So you're basically acknowledging that when you put people in a structure, it's different than having a shed in that people habitate, it increases noises, pets, smells, cars, all of those things, and I think it ought to be appropriately used if used. So I ran on that. That's what I told people when I was going to be elected, how I felt about it. And honestly, the votes I've made tonight have tried to be true to what I told people I would do when I was elected. So that is exactly the way I'm gonna treat the situation. So,
Josh,
yeah.
Question for you: are we talking a use or a dwelling unit?
I'm talking a dwelling unit.
Okay. So are we amending the table to include dwelling units now?
Well, it doesn't have anything on ADU. So my understanding is that it needs them, correct?
No, in the ADU ordinance, it said that they had to meet the standard residential setbacks for a home. So right now, Josh, you're right. If they need a 20-foot setback in that zone for a residential home, they would need it for a detached accessory dwelling unit.
Because it's being applied, because the resident setback is being applied to the ADU. So
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to change it. I think it's fine the way it is then. I think it's in the code, and I like the setbacks for the primary dwelling.
I guess my feelings are too, that I have no need to make a change on it. It seems to be adequate. It seems to be, I see no need to make a change on it myself at this point in time.
Okay. Anyone else? Carrie?
Yeah, I don't see a need to make a change unless there's a need to make a change.
Okay. Janelle?
I have no problem with the table. I do want to address the parking, 10-13-12. I really do think that if you have an accessory dwelling unit, you should at least provide one parking spot for that person. Just, I mean, with the climate that we have, I mean, if they have more than one vehicle, that would be their own situation to resolve. But I think they should at least require one parking spot that's
I agree.
off street.
I do too.
So I need clarification. During our last council meeting, we were changing the side yard setback, correct, Scarlett? And
Yes.
then Nell wasn't sure about how she wanted to vote on the ADUs. And that's why we're talking about it now, correct?
Correct.
And so leaving it alone is what Josh is petitioning for, so that the setbacks are 20 feet, correct?
That's my understanding, is that Josh would like it to read the way the current code reads.
But they're not uniformly 20. Am I reading this correctly? It's front yard 20, side yard 10, rear yard 15?
I'm so confused. Sorry.
I thought I was okay, but then I got confused by looking at Christina's picture behind her there. It's so pretty, it distracted me. Yeah.
So they would meet the standard of the new code. So if the new code allows a primary dwelling structure to have a 15-foot backyard, then the way the current accessory dwelling unit detached reads, that would also be required to have a 15-foot rear yard.
So that's what I am saying. So that's how it is right now, is the accessory dwelling unit would be the same setback as the house,
Correct.
correct? That's what I'm in favor of. So that would mean leaving it, right?
Right.
Okay.
And it was proposed to be in some instance smaller than that. Is that right, Scarlett, from planning?
Yes, it was proposed in some instances to be smaller. So
I'm in
that,
favor of leaving it.
I think it's fine.
Okay. All right, this is a discussion item. So we're not voting on anything tonight.
Okay. I
So
feel
my
like
only-
it's been-
So,
I feel like it's
Mayor?
been discussed unless anyone else has anything else to say.
I heard a hair from someone.
That was me. Janelle, I
Janelle?
just, yeah. Since I am the planning commission liaison, is there anything that I need to say back to them about this, or are we just fine where we're at?
If there's no action recommended, then there's nothing to go back.
So they haven't come to us and recommended anything, so there's nothing to report back.
Well, with the parking, is that something that we would recommend that they review or reconsider, or?
if
You
you
mean-
want to change the current code, then yes, that would have to go back through the planning commission to make a recommendation on the current code requirement that doesn't require any additional parking.
If Janelle's suggesting that, I would actually like to go back and make amendments to the ADU. And I could provide some comments to Ryan that he could feed to planning and zoning. Janelle, if you feel that way, I feel like the ADU ordinance needs updating. So
Yeah, I definitely think the parking was the only thing I really took issue with, but
You know what?
yeah, I think it would be something nice for them to consider
So I've heard
modifying.
I've heard several council meeting members talk about being educated on different issues. There's quite a bit of literature out there on accessory dwelling units. If you do a Google search, I think ADUs or accessory dwelling, you'll find that what's out there. I can do some research and send some links. Anyone's interested.
I'm not in favor of rewriting this ordinance at this point. Janelle, I'm happy to consider absolutely a parking space. We discussed this in length and, but I don't know that it's something that would be fair that Josh would send notes to Ryan and send back to planning and zoning for us to come and look at it. I mean, I think at that point we need to, if we're relooking at it, don't we all need to relook at it? I mean, I don't want to
change
get obsolete.
it though, right?
There's a reason that we have this ordinance, and it really doesn't fit very many instances, but some it would. And I'm not in favor of just redoing it. I think it's a good ordinance. We worked hard on it. I would be okay with a spot.
And I just come back to, and I'm sorry it's rehashing old stuff, but the people that elected me, they wanted to see some of these changes. That's my constituency. I hope you guys can respect that, but I don't answer to my own ideas and my own thoughts. I answer to my constituency, and I know there were issues with this the last council, and that's why I'd like to do it. So.
Well, but how would that work if, Josh made the comment, I'm just gonna send notes to Ryan to change it? I don't know that
That's
that's.
what I'm saying. I can't do it on my own. I'm not, it has to be direction of council. I'm just saying I'm one person, but if Janelle feels that way, if there's another council member that does, I think we're a democratic body. I think that can be done. But no, that's just, I've tried to be clear tonight that I'm just an individual vote, and I've always felt that way. I respect the way you guys vote, and I know that you respect the way I vote. No, I have some comments. If there's another council member who wants to do it, yeah, I'd like to see some revisions on it.
One thing to keep in mind, Josh and the other council members, I have a couple friends on the Commission on Housing Affordability, and I've attended a number of their commission meetings. And the commission is taking this, it started out in 2018 with Senate Bill 34, taking this kind of step by step, kind of wait and see. And they have an expectation that the housing issues for now are hands off as far as solving the housing shortage issues. But they have indicated that they will be closely watching progress, and they really don't want to have to impose, but they are going to get reports back from cities that are required to track this. But the next thing they're going to do is report on progress on what the cities have chosen to adopt. And I think there are 22 or 23 options, and it's not a matter of just putting it in your moderate income housing plan and saying we got the box checked.
We lost you, Mayor.
There he is.
Okay. All right.
Great.
So where are we at?
You cut out there for the last 15 seconds, Mayor. We didn't hear you.
Yeah, I got an incoming phone call. I'm on my iPad, which is connected to my phone, so I apologize.
Can I make another suggestion?
Go ahead, Christina.
Can we look at this issue after we've gone to the league meetings? Because that's where we've learned so much about the things that we have to do. And I understand, Josh, you have people that are wanting you to do what they want, but there's so much that we learned and that we know that we have to do, and that is for the betterment of the city. I would propose again that this issue wait until after we get training at the league meetings, because that's where I learned so much about it.
I definitely need more information. I feel like the parking spot thing is fine. I can see where people, don't want accessory dwellings. But I certainly don't know requirements.
A lot of it too, when we wrote this ordinance and we were thinking about like downtown Logan, where you have those big inner blocks, the pioneers developed these huge lots. And right now, the middle part of it is just nothing. So, that's where you would see an accessory dwelling is back in there, because we don't garden like the pioneers used to do. We don't have orchards like the pioneers used to do.
Oh, speak for yourself.
Anyway, but that's where it's intended, and that's where we have to have it as an option. I feel like, and Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like your constituents just want to get rid of it, but I feel like it's an important option that we need to provide.
I do believe that my constituents want to get rid of it. I also, this is not the first time I've looked at this issue. I've been to all the league meetings, but I was going to those and learning about this long before I was elected. So I know that this is one of those 23 check boxes, and I know, sorry, Mayor, you're muted. Maybe he's supposed to be muted. Oh, okay. But I know that it's one of those three check boxes. And right now, what the state code requires us is just to check the box. I mean, I'm aware of that too. They haven't imposed any reporting on it yet. I'm not inclined to, and I don't think my constituents are inclined to do anything more than the state is requiring us to do today. So yeah, I'm just trying to answer to them. So thank you for at least acknowledging that.
Josh,
All right.
may I make a comment? I'm walking around because I need to stand. But I think myself, I speak for myself, I need to come up to speed a little bit more on this whole thing as well. And the mayor's proposed some sites where we can learn. And I would appreciate that, Mayor, if you could send us some information. I think you've had an advantage maybe a little bit over us on the serving on the planning commission. I'm not sure if that's where this came from, but I personally don't feel comfortable really making any adjustments to this thing. It kind of just came over into our tenure here right after the 1st of January. And I just don't know enough. And to even make an intelligent suggestion or comment or what you're saying there. So I personally feel like some of the others that I just need more education on this.
So to Brent's point and to what Christina said, this 100% came from the council. It did not originate with the planning commission.
Oh, okay.
And,
all right.
And Christina's point about the League of Cities and Towns is I made a point as soon as I became mayor that I was going to encourage all of the council members, planning commission members as well, and as many staff as possible attend the annual conference. And I've gone there, I think 5 occasions now. You really learn a lot. You learn a lot from your peers. And there were sessions on accessory dwelling units. There were general sessions to discuss the whole housing issue. In fact, I think that was the theme of the 2018 annual conference in September. And we all came back and collectively, all of us said, we're going to take this issue on. And Christina, I'd say 5 or 6 council meetings, we set aside time to work through all of the details of this. It wasn't just something where we put an ordinance together and then voted on it and we were done. And we put a lot of thought into it, but we also used a lot of what we came away with from the league annual convention.
Mayor, can I add one comment to that?
Sure.
Mayor Drew did do a great deal of homework and he got the council really involved, but I do want to make it clear that it did go through the proper land use steps. The planning commission, after Mayor Drew got his initial draft to him, the planning commission had a chance to look at it. They looked at it, and then it went through the planning commission, went back up to the council, and the council made whatever modifications or changes to it. The parking that you're talking about was one of the ones that there was a little bit of differing opinion one way or the other, but it did go through both bodies in order to get passed. It went through all, even though the council realized it was a good opportunity to look at a variety of housing options. It did go through the planning commission and the planning commission worked on this as well. So it had a lot of time put into it.
Okay. All right, can we move on? Council reports? Yes. I didn't bring my sheet. I forgot it downstairs in my office of council assignments, but I'm going to start with Carrie. Carrie and I had a dialogue today. I got a phone call yesterday from the general manager at the Young Toyota Honda dealer. They did this food bank parade in some cities. I got a call from someone, the Young Family Foundation or something, that's trying to promote this. You saw it was in the newsletter. We're trying to raise funds for the food bank. what, if you read my email, they're trying to coordinate with the cities, get a message out to the residents, donate canned goods, other kinds of food items, have the food bank van come through the neighborhoods. They even said sometimes we had fire department or police and they could run their lights, sirens or whatever. Anyway, initially I reached out to one of the scout leaders I know, and he said, well, we really don't have scouts. And I got pushed back last time I suggested or brought up this idea. I reached out to Carrie and I said, what about the youth council? So the target date is April 24th. So I've been asked to see if we could make this happen in Providence. So, and we really don't, we don't have people's email addresses to send this out. And I don't know, Scarlett, you probably know what the count is on the pipeline. We can get a pipeline message out, but the suggestion was that we put flyers on every doorstep. And if the youth council would be willing to do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think the whole council got the same email I did, and my response was, yes, I love it. I can get flyers out. I know the youth council would be willing to help. And if not, I know about 500 other youth who don't have a whole lot going on in their lives right now. So, so I think we could get flyers on doors.
Okay.
But there's lots of questions about the details. Like, would there be a map of, because driving up and down the streets would take a lot of time. So there would need to be like certain times that certain parts of the city would be hit.
Well, first of all, there's two things. There's putting out the flyers, and that's
No
days
problem. Got that.
The second thing is the parade.
Mhm.
And there'd be a parade route, and that's something they haven't worked out yet. The other thing is they were going to send me a draft of a flyer,
Mhm.
and you and I can look at the flyer, and we can.
So
make
would
any-
it be the young Toyota Honda that would do the route and the route and the details, or is that something
Well, they're going to do
you would
two
need me to
things.
do?
They're going to do two things. Depending on the food bank and what resources they have, they're going to offer equipment, and they're going to offer volunteers. So if they need a pickup truck, and the food bank only has one or something, then they'll provide an extra one. I don't know. And Matt Whitaker is the director at the Cash Food Pantry, and I know Matt, and so there's a lot of coordination and discussion that needs to happen. So Carrie, I'll make sure you're in the loop. And,
Yeah, this kind of stuff's right up my alley. Anything that's humanitarian and social.
So this all came up today, so we'll work on making it happen.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, as long as we can do it in a safe way. I mean, my thought was that people would be standing in front of their houses, so they weren't gathered in big groups.
Or they just leave
More than
things out
10.
there on the curb or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay. We'll
yeah.
figure.
But even, I mean, if there was a siren going and you could hear it coming, I mean, kids love that, and moms love to give their kids stuff to give away.
Yes. It sounds like it's going to be a fun thing. And Deputy Carley, when I spoke to him, I said, in some cities they've used the fire department or the police. He kind of jumped on it and said, no, I'll do it.
Oh yeah, that's fun. That's fun work. I mean, when the other options, like waiting to give some poor soul a ticket going down the hill.
Yeah. I think it's better than throwing out Tootsie Rolls at the city
Way
parade.
better, so fun. So we can get flyers out, no problem.
All right, done. All right, let's move on. What else do you have for us, Carrie?
Well, and then my other assignment is fiber, and I think we'll move forward with the Zions Bank crunching the numbers unless anyone here feels contrary to that. So those are, and I think
I'm
the
good.
need has become very apparent in the last month. My son thinks that our internet with typically 6 devices going at a time, with 7 people in the house, there's usually just one person who's not on the internet. He thinks our internet's the only one that's lagging. It's our house. He would really like to blame my husband for the poor internet in the house. So I think the need has become a little more apparent.
I think we can impact I think we can sense the impact on the bandwidth here in the city office.
Yeah. So.
All right. Christina?
As far as the fiber goes, I am fine to proceed with the study financially, but I expressed to Ryan and I made a comment to Carrie, I have a list, and I haven't sent that to Ryan yet, of technical considerations that I really want Zions Bank to evaluate to make sure that all cost considerations are looked at.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'll get that to you, Ryan, in the next day.
Okay,
Sorry
there
for
may
the
be
delay.
a little change in prices. They crunched some additional numbers, but when they came in at 5, they initially told me 5 to 10. I thought 5 was great, and to be able to add some of those crunching numbers, I think would be fine. So yeah, I think they gave us a good price, so I think they can crunch them. Be good.
Okay. Christina?
Nothing. We're gonna form some subcommittees. We don't have a meeting in the morning, do we?
We didn't set a specific time, but we talked in generality that we could. But if you want to
What
set
we
a
do-
time,
Let's do it next week. Sorry. Yeah, we're just gonna form subcommittees and I'm gonna be asking y'all to help out. I need ideas. I'm not creative, so. That's all. For the city celebration.
All right, Josh?
Just to follow up, probably a real quick question for Scarlett and Ryan. Have we heard from Steve Simmons? I worry we kind of ghosted him with his de-annexation request. I know the COVID stuff was happening. I didn't see him on today's agenda. I don't want him to have to wait all through the summer. And
what we have that scheduled on the agenda for the May 6th meeting. We'll have a budget one on that one, and we'll have our public hearing. This is the test of being able to have it live streamed here, and this method of Zoom is a better option.
Just want to make sure we didn't forget about him.
We have not forgot about him. Absolutely not.
What else you got, Josh?
That's it. I won't call for a roll call vote when we adjourn.
Thanks.
Janelle?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't have anything.
Okay. Brent?
I did talk with the Danes regarding the property north of the theater. And it is zoned commercial. And of course, that pond and bulrush pond there's nothing much that they can do with that. But of course, in everything, there's a trade-off. What they would like to do and what they have a proposal to do, a guy that wants to purchase it, they would like to put that area east of LeGrand Johnson's into some of the higher density housing. And then they would talk, and it's zoned commercial right now, but they would like to put that into higher density housing because there's no interest in commercial and hasn't been since back in the days when I was working for the city, which has been, 13 plus or more years. And they would like to put that into higher density housing, and they'd be willing to talk about using the pond for a fish pond. So that's something that I guess I don't know if the council would be, and I realize it has to go through planning commission and land use and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know how dead set the city is on having that a commercial area versus a interim area from of higher density housing in the area where they have access to mass transit and access to Logan City and Macy's and the commercial district and the theaters and that. I just don't have a feel for that for Providence City. And so that's something I would have looked into. And again, maybe that's something that we could put on the agenda to see if there was, I guess it has to be an agenda item to see if anybody was interested in changing that. And maybe maybe nobody's interested. I don't know.
To apply, it goes through the proper process.
So Brent, you can get more details on this from Scarlett, but the property owner has to petition
Sure.
the city
Yeah.
for the change. And then the staff will consider it and do their research and make their recommendation.
Okay, then
So
I'll
we
go
have
back to him and tell him
Property
that
owner.
he'd ask to make the recommendation.
So is Danes planning to develop this or planning to sell it to a developer?
Sell it to a developer.
Okay.
They don't want to develop it in the housing. They bought it as an investment and they're just turning their investment over.
Okay.
All right. Leaving that, another on my council report, of course, I get daily briefings on the situation with our state emergency preparedness. And we are currently at a level 1 full activation on state emergency preparedness and have been for weeks now. And I mentioned to Ryan, we usually have an emergency management meeting, but due to the situation, we didn't have that this month. And Ryan, I don't know, did you ever make contact to Will to have you get those emails?
I do. Since the day we talked, I've been getting those emails, so I'm on top of it.
You know everything that I know about what's going on, and there's, you hear it on the news as well. There's nothing too overwhelming in these bulletins that you don't get on yourself. You get the Bear River one too, for the Bear River Bear River Health Department. I think you do. It's Tri-County area, which is the Box Elder, Cache,
I'm
and
gonna
Rich
bring my
County, where we're at.
MacBook next time because this is really, it doesn't show the controls on the screen.
Bulletins that you don't get on yourself. You get the Bear River one too. For the Bear River Bear River Health Department.
Pass that again. Sorry, we've had technical difficulty on our side with two different ones together. I don't get the Bear River Health one.
Okay, he should be sending that one to you too. Right now, it's the Tri-County area.
Are you saying Will? He does. If I do get 2 reports from Will, they come in the same email.
Yeah, there's two PDFs in the email. One's Bear River Health Department, and the other is the state.
I was thinking it was a separate email, but no, I get those. I'm good.
Okay, well, you're aware of everything. I don't have anything more to report on that. So I guess I do have a question, but I'll email Chad. Chad, what's your email address?
It is CWoolley, CW, CW, 2 O's, 2 L's, and an EY at me.com, MikeEcho.com.
At me.
Yep.
.com.
Right.
Okay, I just had a question for you. I know, so that's CWOOLLEY at me.com.
Yep. And let me give you my phone number too.
Okay.
It's 801.
Okay.
550.
Okay.
3988.
3988. Yeah, I just had a question I'd like to talk to you about, and I don't want to take the council's time with it.
All
I
right.
have one quick question before if that's okay, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I would love to take the council's temperature. I don't know how to do this, Ryan, Mayor, tell me. I would like to relook at the ordinance for our townhomes and look at the open space. I'm concerned that I would like to change it and make them require more open space for townhomes. Do I have to get the council's temperature to see if that's something that we look at, or what do?
I'm really warm to that. There's my temperature.
Ryan, what's the process?
I would write up your proposed changes, submit it to the planning and zoning chairman. But submit it to the staff and we can get it with the planning and zoning and have them process. If it's a land use, it needs to start there.
But should I see if the council's, I mean, if nobody wants to else look at that, then there's no sense in me writing up the changes. I mean, Josh said would look at it.
I'm
I would
interested.
look at it, Christina.
I would also.
Okay.
There you go. Write up your proposals and your options. Send them into Scarlett and I, and we'll forward them on to with planning and zoning and have them start to look at it.
Thanks.
That's all right. I'll just look over your shoulder. Is that a Mac? Yeah, that'll
That's-
work.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, let's move on. So I have just one thing. We've already covered the other. Oh, did want to mention in previous council meetings, Ryan talked about the grant application he submitted. It was federal money for roads. I don't remember what state agency, $6 million. Whatever committee that makes a decision on that meets sometime the month of April. So
They'll meet in April. We'll find out from them in May if we made the short list.
okay. And my question of Ryan was, and he'd have to look into it, is would any of that grant money be suitable to be used on 100 South? And he will get an answer.
We'll have to look. If we get shortlisted, we could look at it. But that will be our next one, is if we're shortlisted to look.
All right. All right. One other thing, I got a call from Bob Perry yesterday, who's the planning commission chair. He said he had applied for a job working for the Forest Service in law enforcement. He got the notice that he got the job. So he said he would have to resign from the planning commission as chair, but he would remain on the planning commission. He asked Kathleen Alder if she would take the job of chair, as she is the vice chair. She said yes. I also spoke to Kathleen. I think she'd be an excellent choice. Just want to give the council a heads up on that. And that's all I have. All right, now, so we're done. The only thing we have left, if the council wants to, is to go into executive session.
Do we need to?
Chad?
I don't have any thing that I particularly would like to speak to. And I don't think there's any need for any updates.
Okay.
I don't have any.
Doesn't have any. I don't have any. I'm sorry, I heard somebody.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from
Second.
next second from, I think that was Carrie.
Yep.
Roll call vote.
Oh,
All right.
Not debatable.
Josh, you can tell us why you want to adjourn.
dirtball. Well, the mayor has to acknowledge that, so I'll defer to
It's
him.
not something to debate.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
I.
Aye.
Bye.
Nay? We're done.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good